Babe, wake up! There's a new Fiona video. Hello and welcome back to my self-titled YouTube channel. I'm the eponymous Fiona. Today we shall be taking the deepest dive into Linus from Stardew Valley. Did I get him? Kinda. We are going to be talking about his likes, his dislikes, his heart events, his dialogue, his arc. We're going to be sussing out his personal moral philosophy. We're going to define a lot of terms today. We are also going to spend part of this video talking about kind of like theories. So stick around for that. In case you don't know, in case you're new here, I'm currently working on a series of videos about all of the romanceable NPCs in Stardew Valley. I just did Sam. Next up is Sebastian. But I'm going on holiday soon, and so I wanted to put out a video in between because I care about you and I gotta pay my bills. So we've got a little Linus intermission. I put out a poll on my community tab with a bunch of video ideas that I had kind of in my backlog, and I ended up getting a tie between the wizard and Linus. But then Linus had so many people like batting for him in the comments, just overwhelming love towards Linus. And I love him too, so he gets to go first. I will make all those other videos at some point. They're in, the backlog. So if you want to vote the next time I put out a random poll, subscribe to my channel so you know the next time I try and farm you guys for information. Just so you know, this video will contain 1.6 spoilers. I will mark them. I tag my spoilers. Don't worry. I'll give you like timestamps on the screen so you can skip them. But I haven't been including 1.6 information in my videos because what my plan is to make a big long compilation video of all of them at the end and then do like the updates then. Because when I started making these videos, 1.6 hadn't come out, which is kind of inconvenient. Thanks, Eric. But I'm not gonna like remake this video in any shape or form, so this is gonna be my like definitive Linus video. So I'm gonna be including 1.6 stuff, but I will give spoiler warnings. Okay, fabulous. I hope that you're cozy. I hope you feel good. Maybe you're knitting. Maybe you're folding some laundry, maybe you're doing some art, maybe you're doing some chores, maybe you're working. Let me know. I'm doing this. So we're going to get into Linus in just a sec, but first, let me tell you a little bit about today's sponsor, Rocket Money. Tired of living in a tent in the woods? Want to save up for a cozy house so the local youths don't throw rocks at you anymore? You're going to need to get on top of your expenses. Well, today's sponsor, Rocket Money, is here to help. Rocket Money is the personal finance app that helps you cancel subscriptions, lower your bills, and manage your money better. You can use Rocket Money to cancel your unwanted subscriptions. With a couple of taps, you can cancel from within the app. And you don't have to like talk to a human being, which I'm assuming that everyone hates as much as I do. Rocket Money can also help you negotiate your bills. Upload a photo of your bill, tap a few buttons, and Rocket Money will negotiate your bills for you. And again, you don't have to talk to anyone. Amazing. Rocket Money has helped save its members up to $740 a year when they use all the features, with over $500 million in cancelled subscriptions. To save more and spend less, join the over 5 million members using Rocket Money today. Go to rocketmoney.com/Fiona or click the link in the description to get started for free. You can also unlock even more features with premium. That's rocketmoney.com/Fiona to get started for free. Thank you to Rocket Money for sponsoring this video. Let's talk about Linus. So, this is Linus. I mean, these are all Linus, but... So for all of my other videos with the romanceable NPCs, they have a certain amount of extra, like, props. Like, there's the bouquet, Because Linus is just a regular NPC. He doesn't get that, and I felt like that was unfair. So I made him some extra props. So this is his sprite. I also made his tent. And I made a bush, just because I thought that'd be cute. Honestly, I should get a Blue Tag sponsorship. So, like, even... I might move them in a little while if that pisses me off. So yeah, if we first talk about his outfit, I'm assuming that the implication is that he made it out of a bunch of leaves. I mean, it does just look like a bunch of leaves. He kind of looks like a little pine cone, to be fair. And now, hopefully, we have this. So we can see that his whole body is covered in these kind of little spikes. So I think it's a pretty safe assumption to say his outfit is made of leaves. And I like to match my outfits to the characters, but how am I going to do that? I was sitting there in my bedroom thinking, I don't have a shirt that's made of leaves, right? Like, I don't just have that, like, in a bag somewhere. No. So I went with this. It's kind of like a hoodie with, nature, animals. I don't know. Close enough. So I'm going to explain Linus's kind of role in the game for anyone who doesn't play it. Linus is not available to be romanced, sadly. I know there are some people who really want that. I'm sure there are mods, actually, to be fair. I would bet my life that there are mods. He's pretty much just like a standard NPC. He lives in the town. He has a unique personality. He can teach you some recipes. He's there to add to like the flavour, the richness and the diversity of like the town, the environment, make it feel more immersive. He lives up in the mountains in his tent. He's the only villager in town that doesn't have a house. Okay, first, we're going to get on the same page about what he is. Is he homeless? Is he a nomad? Is he a traveller? What's the difference? We're going to define our terms, okay? So most people seem to refer to him as like the homeless guy. You know, I saw that in Reddit. I saw that in fan fiction. And you would think that that would be correct because he doesn't have a home, right? He lives in this tent. But homelessness is actually more complicated than that. Quick side note, I know the term unhoused is like gaining popularity as a way of like emphasizing that the issue is structural, i.e. the government is failing to house these people instead of them just like inherently being homeless. They're unhoused, they should be housed. But every resource I looked into used the term homeless. So I'm mostly going to use that for the sake of clarity, so forgive me for that. So I looked into this for a while. Homelessness isn't just doesn't have a home. That's very vague. Homelessness covers a lot of different things, whether you have access to a home, whether you're staying in temporary accommodation, if you're at risk of DV, if you live in a caravan but you have nowhere to put it. Like there are lots of little details that can mean if someone's like technically homeless or not. And from my research, it seems to overwhelmingly be like, do you have security? Is there any safe place in the world that you can access and reliably sleep without the risk of being kicked out? If the answer is no, then you're homeless. And a tent doesn't count as a safe place. So according to Shelter, which is a UK homeless charity, someone who is sleeping rough is legally homeless if they have no other accommodation. And in the UK, the Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government defines sleeping rough as people sleeping, about to bed down, sitting on/in or standing next to their bedding, or actually bedded down in the open air, such as on the streets, in tents, doorways, parks, bus shelters, or encampments. But notably, this definition says it explicitly does not include travellers, which is defined in the UK as persons of nomadic habit of life, whatever their race or origin. Nomadic? What does that mean? So we're going to do a little bit of history here, a little bit of anthropology. It's a Fiona video. Did you think that we weren't going to define every single one of our terms? You fool! So the term nomad simply refers to a people, or usually a community, without fixed habitation who regularly move to and from areas. Basically, instead of choosing one place, living there full-time, permanently, moving, every few years or so, like most of us do, it's constant movement. Nomads are communities who move from place to place as a way of obtaining food, finding pasture for livestock, or otherwise making a living. Most nomadic groups follow a fixed, annual or seasonal pattern of movements and settlements. Nomadic people traditionally travel by animal, canoe, or on foot. Animals include camels, horses, and alpaca. Today, some nomads travel by motor vehicle. Some nomads may live in homes or homeless shelters, though this would necessarily be on a temporary or itinerant basis. So basic top-down, broad view of this concept, you don't have a fixed home, and that's part of your plan, that's part of your lifestyle. You're doing it on purpose. For this video, we're going to be looking at nomadic living for the purpose of subsistence. That's an anthropology term that I just learned. Subsistence describes the means that a group uses to obtain food and resources. These are economic systems not based on the use of money. Many subsistence economies still exist today, but originally, all cultural groups subsisted off the land. Subsistence economies don't tend to produce surpluses, and often don't involve specialization or urbanization. There are many ways that people subsist off the land, through foraging, agriculture, and pastoralism. So those three terms there, foraging, agriculture, pastoralism. Pastoralism is raising animals, agriculture is growing plants, foraging is subsisting off the wild. We see all three of these things in Stardew Valley, which I think is really interesting. It's a very anthropologically researched game. For Linus, we are going to be focusing on foraging. Foraging describes the practice of subsisting off of the land from wild plants and animals. It can include hunting, gathering, and fishing. Foraging was the original way that humans obtained food, but is rarely exclusively practiced today. It often involved travel and a nomadic or semi-nomadic lifestyle, since people had to move with the seasons as their food sources changed. While when we typically think of ancient peoples as subsisting off the land by hunting large wild animals, this was often not the case. Foraging describes the practice of hunting, but it also includes other popular ways of obtaining food, such as fishing, berry picking, and others. There is a chance that most foragers did at least some hunting, although anthropologists and archaeologists debate what proportion of past diets were composed of hunted meat. Fishing was another type of foraging that was widely practiced. Foraging diets that included fishing usually relied on basic tools, such as harpoons, arrows, nets, and others. However, we can safely assume that past diets were largely variable, since the types and amounts of foods that were consumed would have been modified in accordance with the geographic and climatic conditions. Okay, we're done. I'm not going to talk to you about anthropology anymore. So, that's Linus. This is what we see Linus do. He forages. He eats berries, mushrooms, fish. He doesn't plant things. He doesn't raise animals. He's a forager. So like it says in that quote, it would often involve the nomadic lifestyle because you would have to move with the seasons, move somewhere warmer in winter, move where the food grows. So we've defined our terms. We've learned a lot. But fundamentally, what is the difference between him being homeless and him being a nomad? In both situations, it's someone without a permanent home. So this is a very deep and complicated subject that I'm not going to be able to cover every nuance of. There are a lot of shades of grey in between these two terms. But from my research, it seems like it's mostly about choice. In our modern Western world, being a nomad is seen as kind of a luxury, like an escape from the rat race. Modern ideas of being a nomad are like someone solo traveling, or you can be like a digital nomad, which is someone who works remotely and doesn't have a permanent location. These people, for the most part, can choose to stop being a nomad to settle down. They'll have somewhere they can go if they need to. I found an interesting article from a digital nomad about this privilege. Digital nomads always have a place to go, whether they have a plan or not. I have several locations in the US and Canada that are always open to me, no questions asked. In addition to this being a resource, it's a safety net. If I ever get into a bad situation or don't have enough money, it's not like I don't have places I can go. Homeless, and feeling homeless, in my experience, means having nowhere to go or lacking the resources to get there. When I feel the support of my social resources, I feel like a digital nomad. When I do not, I feel homeless. So there she talks about feeling homeless. Her point, from what I can understand, is basically there's not much technical difference between being homeless and being like a digital nomad. In both cases, you don't have a permanent home. But that difference really comes in your privilege, in your personal situation. If you are actively choosing not to have a permanent address, then you're a nomad. But if you ever got into a bad financial situation where suddenly that wasn't your choice anymore, it was your only option, then you'd be homeless. It's about the privilege of that choice. And she also writes about how digital nomads kind of scoff at being called homeless because it's kind of a dirty word, It's got certain connotations to it in terms of class. So it's also a privilege to be able to entirely separate yourself from a less fortunate population, call yourself by a different word that has different connotations. It's complicated. I looked into this for 4 hours, but obviously that's not going to be able to cover everything. I just wanted to add a little bit of nuance to this part of the conversation. I didn't want to just be well, he doesn't have a home, so he's homeless, right? Because it's more complicated than that. Linus has not been let down by the structural powers of our society like unhoused people have. But I will try and quash my inner communist for the rest of this video. So Linus has a dialogue line. What would Linus sound like? Wise. Can I sound wise? I don't think I could sound wise if I tried. I guess in my head he sounds like Gandalf. I don't like to I think I'll just do kind of gentle, maybe like a Krobus type vibe. I don't like to stay in one place for too long. There's just too much to experience in the world. So this is his choice. He tells you this many times. He chooses his lifestyle. The crisp air of the wilderness is all I care to know. I live out here by choice. Many, many times. He's very clear. All this to say, he's very firm with you multiple times that this is his choice. And so therefore, I'm going to definitively call him a nomad. He is a foraging nomad. That feels like a D&D alignment. Tag yourselves, I'm a pastoral stationary. So as a foraging nomad, it makes total sense that he would end up in Stardew Valley. Foraging is one of the main gameplay loops. There are berries and vegetables literally everywhere, constantly, even in winter. This is an easier time of year for me. I don't have to worry about staying warm. Plus, the fruits of the wild are growing everywhere. Winter is tough, but you can still fish and forage to get by. If you have any animals, you should keep them inside. There's nothing quite like a feast of wild mushrooms in the fall. So this brings us to his gifts. He's such an easy guy to gift. He's a low-maintenance king. So his loves include coconut, yams, and cactus fruit, which are all things that you can forage. Literally, you just find them on the ground. And every other item that you can forage is something he likes, which makes sense with everything we've said about him. All right, 1.6 spoiler. Get out of here, Switch players. Go! Get out of here. So as of 1.6, a lot of the gifting dialogue has become more specific. The character is more likely to refer to the thing that you're giving them instead of just a generic response. Instead of thank you, they'll be I love pizza, I think that's one of Sam's new lines. He goes, oh yeah, pizza time. Pizza time. So Linus, if you give him an edible forageable, he'll say, that's a good find. I'm always happy when eating wild food. Thank you. It's cute. You and Linus are just foraging besties. While we're in spoiler territory, I'll give you another spoiler. So the treasure chest in the game is worth a lot of money. And in previous versions, it was universally hated for some reason. But now in 1.6, it's universally liked. Except Linus. He dislikes it. And if you give it to him, he'll say, no, thank you. I have no desire for money. In fact, I think it's cursed. And that's so interesting. We're probably going to come back to that. I haven't finished the second part of the script. So just keep that in mind, okay? Store it. Keep it in there. End of spoiler. So he dislikes all gems and foraged minerals, except for diamond and prismatic shard. Prismatic shard is universally loved, and we're going to kind of come back to the diamond thing in a little bit. So for his hates, he only hates the universal hates. So we've got poppy, strange bun, red mushroom. So you can see that he's an easy person to gift because he likes or loves stuff that is literally free and that you find on the ground, and he doesn't hate anything random or weird. Basically, if you pick it up off the ground, he likes it. He's going to be happy with it. So he's a lot of people's like first friend when you first start playing because you're too broke to like buy anyone anything good. So let's talk about his age. He looks pretty old. We don't get any specifics from looking at him. Obviously his hair is grey. It's got all these kind of little specks of white in it as well. He also calls you young in dialogue. You can learn a lot from trees. Spend time with them and they might tell you their secrets. Go in peace, young one. How have you been, my young friend? So he's calling you young. What's the opposite of young? Old. The two genders. Another thing we have to go off in terms of his age is how physically active he is. So Linus is one of the characters who can save you if you pass out, aka if you like stay up past your bedtime. You'll wake up in your bed with a note from him saying he found you. So the implication is that he carried you all the way home and like tucked you into bed, gave you a little glass of milk, little kiss on the forehead, got all your like stuffies for you. And he can also save you if you die in the mines. He says he found you unconscious as he was passing by. And the implication there is that he carried you from however far down in the mines you were, all the way to the top. There is a lift in the mines, to be fair. But overall, we can say he's definitely capable of like carrying a human person for a decent distance. So I would put him personally anywhere from like late 50s to like early 70s. It really depends on the person, how like strong and active you are at any age. But I think that that's like a pretty reasonable bracket. I mean, he could be like 30 and he has that go grey early gene, so... So we've reached the end of our intro about Linus. We've got our like foundational knowledge. I usually talk about relationships in the intro, like if he has any friends, but we're going to save that for when it's thematically relevant. So I usually structure these videos like through the heart events. With the romantic NPCs, it's like 2 hearts, 4 hearts, etc. But Linus only has 3 heart events. So kind of like I did with my Krobus video, we're going to structure it into parts. Part 1, arc. We're going to talk about the player's relationship with Linus, his dialogue, his heart events, how he changes, his personality, his like philosophy on life, pretty much everything that you would expect from the deepest dive. Part 2 will be theories, also known as baseless speculation. Who is this guy? Where did he come from? And who is throwing rocks at his tent? I call it baseless speculation because it is. I love making shit up as much as the next person, but there's no basis for any of this shit. It's all just like shits and giggles, fan fiction, but we're going to go through it because it's fun. We'll have a good time. Okay, let's do it. Just so you don't think you're going crazy, I did put on some fake nails between those 2 shots, so they didn't just materialise from nowhere. I got this blanket, by the way. Maybe you noticed. It's just from IKEA. I just thought I'd add a little bit of colour. Okay, so when you first meet Linus, he says, "A stranger? Hello? Don't mind me. I just live out here alone." So it's very unassuming dialogue. Not exactly friendly, but not hostile. He says, "Don't mind me," so he's like actively wanting to be unassuming. He wants you to just walk past and not see him. So this is his first meeting dialogue, the first time you meet him. But the rest of his like 0 hearts dialogue is more suspicious. You've come back. You've talked to him again. You've moved past him just being like a curiosity. You're seeking him out and he's mistrustful of that. "Have you come to ridicule me? I'm just minding my own business. I don't know you well enough to trust you. Sorry. I'm happy by myself, you know. I don't need new friends." Same bestie. No new friends. So with that first line, he's assuming that you're coming to ridicule him. That would be kind of an insane thing to say out of nowhere, so we're pretty safe to assume that that's happened to him before. With that second line, he says he doesn't know you well enough to trust you, which implies that he's mistrustful of all people when he first meets them. The third line is a little firmer. He's kind of actively pushing you away. "I don't need new friends. Why are you trying to be my friend?" It's very Shane-coded. So why is he so mistrustful? We've already seen that he's been ridiculed before, but he has some other lines. "Please don't destroy my tent. It's happened before. Someone was throwing rocks at my tent last night. I just had to wait it out." And at 4 hearts, he'll tell you, "Some joker sprayed paint all over my home during the night. It took hours to scrub it off this morning." So someone's destroyed his tent before. Someone is actively throwing rocks at his tent and spray painting it. Whether or not it's the same person remains to be seen. We'll get into those theories in our baseless speculation. But it makes sense why he wouldn't trust a stranger, especially one like you, who keeps coming back and bothering him, even when he's kind of asked you not to. He's clearly used to being an outlier, and like I said, you're seeking him out now. You're repeatedly talking to him, and he sees that as like kind of a threat. So if we talk for a while now about the townspeople and their relationship with Linus, He has some lines at Four Hearts. It would be nice if the townspeople could accept me for who I am. I like living out here in the open air. That's what they don't understand. The people here seem nice, but they avoid me. People are afraid of the unknown. We don't like what we don't understand. Yes, it scares us, and this monster is mysterious and strange. Not that many of the townspeople have dialogue that's like about him. So we have Emily. I feel bad for Linus. People judge him, but he's just living a different lifestyle. I wish everyone could learn to be accepting of others. Was that my Emily voice? I wish everyone could learn to be accepting of others. And we've got Penny. Are you friends with Linus? He lives in a tent up in the mountains. Everyone ignores him. The poor guy. He's actually really nice. Just a little odd. It must be so cold to live in a tent this time of year. And those lines seem to be more about Penny and Emily than they do about Linus. Like, we mentioned those lines in their videos as part of their character. Like, Emily's line about him shows that she's open-minded, that she wishes everyone could learn to be accepting of others. Penny's line shows that she's kind, she's accepting, she worries about him being cold. She's preventifying Linus. But these two characters are pretty nice about him. They're pretty accepting. So we also have a line from Robin. So Robin lives up in the mountains as well, and Linus lives, like, technically behind her house. Have you met the wild man that lives behind our house? I guess I don't really mind, as long as he doesn't bother us. So that's like a little bit less nice. Still accepting. She doesn't mind as long as he doesn't bother them. She calls him a wild man, so she doesn't know his name like Emily and Penny do. So presumably she's never talked to him. To be fair, he doesn't tell you his name in his first meeting dialogue, so maybe she has. But she didn't ask what his name was. So from Robin, it's kind of like a tolerance from a distance, a kind of wariness, wanting to keep up a boundary. As long as he doesn't bother them, it's fine. Not in my backyard. Or I guess it's okay to be in my backyard, but like, leave us alone. There's also a line from Alex that arguably could be in reference to Linus, but it's not for sure, so let's take a look at it. I got these new shoes yesterday because my old pair had a brown smudge. I just threw them into the garbage. I would have donated them, but I don't like the idea of some weirdo wearing my shoes, What? So he references some weirdo wearing his shoes if you donated them. There's lots of things that happen to shoes if you donate them, in the UK at least. They could just be sold in a charity shop, or they could be given directly to someone who needs them. So by weirdo, Alex is either referring to someone in need or someone who shops at a charity shop. There's a certain class element to it. Buying used clothing is pretty popular across all demographics these days, but there are a lot of people who shop at thrift shops, charity shops, because they can't afford anywhere else. So we could say that Alex is being quite offensive by saying that anyone who could get their hands on his donated shoes, a weirdo, whether they're someone in need or they're someone with money issues. But I don't really think he's referring to Linus here, because he threw his shoes into the garbage. And Linus' whole thing is that he takes stuff out of the garbage. We'll see this soon in Linus' first heart event. He's always digging through the garbage. If Alex was thinking directly about Linus and how he didn't want Linus to have his shoes, then the worst thing he could have done is throw them in the garbage. He would have been better off donating them. But then I guess Alex doesn't necessarily know that. He doesn't know all of the nuances of Linus' personality. I think what we can take from this line and from Robin's line is that the townspeople, while they're not actively cruel or malicious towards Linus, they are, as he puts it, afraid of the unknown. They avoid him. They don't understand him. I don't think Alex is referring to him directly. I think he's just being kind of ignorant, which is very reflective of his early character. Check out my Alex deep dive to see him develop past this. This is a pro-Alex channel. We love him. And Robin's sentiment is just the classic, you do you, that's fine. Just keep it away from me. Someone did spray paint his tent and throw rocks at his tent, but we'll talk more about that later, and I don't think it affects our conclusion here. If Linus thought that someone from the town did that, I don't think he would have said to you that the people here seem nice, Another thing is that the NPCs all react badly to you if you start going through the garbage. So American. The garbage. It's the bin. Basically, you can check the bins in Pelican Town, and a lot of the time you'll find some good stuff in there. Food, clothing, you can even get a garbage hat that's really rare. But if someone sees you doing this, they'll usually have a negative reaction. So, from the wiki, if you interact with a garbage can near any villager other than Linus, you will repulse the villager and lose 25 friendship points with them. The villager must be in a 15 by 15 square centered at your character to be offended. If Linus catches you digging through a garbage can, you will gain 5 friendship points with him. So yeah, if you dig in front of someone like Jodie, she'll say, "Hey, stop that. Yuck." But Linus will say, "Find anything good?" Isn't that just darling? He's so sweet. Another thing that I noticed while I was doing my Sam deep dive, that was my last video, on the Wayback Machine version of Sam's wiki, so the 1.5 wiki, it says, Sam's dialogue is less harsh than other NPCs when the player rummages through garbage cans. Instead of being disgusted, he just asks the player why they're searching through the trash. It still costs the player 25 friendship points, however. But yeah, his current wiki page, that's just not there. So maybe he got more judgmental with the update, I don't know. So with all of this information, we've kind of painted a picture of Linus's role within the town. He's an outcast. Hey! They don't understand him, and the things that they do understand of him, that he goes through the bins, are things that disgust them. So now we're going to look at Linus's first heart event. This is technically a 0 heart event, so it needs to be between 8 p.m. and midnight on a day that's not raining, after the 7th of spring, and you only need to have 50 friendship points with Linus, which is a fifth of one of these bad boys. So it's kind of similar to the dwarf's heart event. It's just there to establish that you know who Linus is. You've spoken to him a few times. Maybe you gave him a gift. You don't need to have like a relationship with him. You just need to have like an awareness of him. All right, let's get into the event. So you walk into town. We see Linus outside George and Evelyn's house, looking through the bin. George exits the house suddenly, and Linus jumps, runs off and hides. George is frustrated, says it sounds like the raccoons are back again. Filthy varmints. The player approaches from the right, and George turns to you, says you've turned up at the right moment. He asks for a favour, for you to scare off the raccoons. They've been causing a real mess. He thanks you and says to make sure you give them a real scare so they never come back. George goes back inside and the player goes around the corner to where Linus is still there. He looks down, looks stressed, says he's sorry. There's a lot of hot fresh food in the bins that will go to waste if he doesn't take it. He asks if you think there's something wrong with what he's doing, and you get a choice. Yes, it's disgusting. No, it's a shame for food to go to waste. Yes, it's illegal. That's George's private property. No, but you should get a job and stop leeching off others. I said it's a shame for food to go to waste, and he says he knew you were an open-minded person. He feels good about what he's doing. He's not harming anyone. He looks around, says you can go home. He won't search George's bin anymore. You can tell him you scared off the raccoons for good. The player walks off, and we follow Linus down to the bin outside the saloon. He looks through it when Gus, the owner of the saloon, exits. Linus jumps and tries to run away, but Gus catches him, says, wait. Linus shakes, turns back around. Gus walks over, says he knows what Linus was doing. Then he says, if Linus needs food, he can just ask. Gus doesn't want anyone to go hungry. He gives Linus a basket of zucchini fritters with spicy marinara. Encourages him to take it. Linus looks down, and we fade to black. So I had to Google what a zucchini is. I do know somewhere in my brain, but we call them courgettes in the UK, and I always forget the translation. And Google told me that because zucchini is an Italian word, the plural is actually zucchino. So the next time you go to the shop to get some zucchinis, you are actually going to get some zucchino. Aren't we all learning so much today? Hello. Fun fact, that's actually completely untrue. Zucchino is singular, zucchini is the plural. Don't listen to Fiona, she's wrong. So we can see what we were previously talking about in this scene. Linus goes through the bins, there's this stigma around that. George assumes that it's raccoons. He calls them filthy varmint. Varmin is apparently a regional colloquialism for vermin. Now, in looking up whether raccoons are vermin, I ended up on a bunch of insurance websites, because if a raccoon destroys a bunch of your stuff, it's apparently super important, like whether it's classed as an animal or vermin or like a mammal, I don't know. The consensus in the insurance world seems to be that a raccoon isn't vermin, because vermin is defined by Webster's Unabridged Dictionary as 1. Any of a number of small animals with filthy, destructive, troublesome habits, such as flies, lice, bedbugs, mice, rats, and weasels. 2. Any bird or animal that kills game. 3. A person who is vile, worthless, or objectionable. B. Such persons collectively. So we see that in that last definition that vermin can refer to people. Apple's dictionary provides a secondary definition of derogatory. People perceived as despicable and as causing problems for the rest of society. Brief tangent to tell you a bunch of stuff I read. 5-second tangent, in and out. Trigger warning, we're going to talk about fleas. So skip that if you don't want to hear that. So vermin as a term includes like fleas and bedbugs and stuff. And in society today, you know, that's all seen as like disgusting, horrible, we hate them. But it used to not be like a gross thing. It was just kind of accepted that they were part of the human body. Dunn's little gem, the flea, testifies to the absolute ubiquity of fleas on even the most elevated human corpuses. Lice and fleas were levelling influences in early modern life. Commoners and royalty were equally subject to both head and pubic lice. Nearly every human body in the period, like every cat, dog, or rat body, was thoroughly explored and colonised by tiny life forms. They were everywhere. I'm everywhere, I'm so Julia. Who's Julia? I don't even know. So there's John Donne's poem The Flea, which was published in 1633, and it basically ties the flea in with both sexuality and religion. You know, sexuality because fleas could explore the whole body. And religion because like they were thought to be like a part of you, just kind of part of the human body, and the human body was created by God, so God created fleas. The poem is largely thought to be a satire. He's not really trying to use a flea to like rizz up some lady, but this poem is essentially Billy Joel's Only the Good Die Young, but like 500 years early. Shout out to the 0.1% of the population who gets both of those references. That's my target audience. So we can see that fleas and like vermin in general weren't disgusting and terrible like they're seen as today. But by the 16th and 17th centuries, vermin, like fleas and lice, had acquired a different significance. As Linda Woodbridge points out, beggars and vagabonds were associated with their vermin, so that not only was their filth subject for condemnation, but beggars themselves seemed like lice, parasitic on the body politic. Piero Camporesi likewise finds that disease and vermin become compelling images for the poor, who are characterized as hordes of human insects who threaten the prosperity and integrity of a nation. End of trigger warning. Welcome back. What's this? What am I doing this for? Okay, all this to say, there is a long history of the term vermin being used to like condemn the poor, tie this comparison with them being like insects, dirty, being like a vermin on society. We can see that George is using the term vermin or varmint here largely as a way of just condemning the raccoons. As we saw, raccoons don't count as vermin, but that doesn't really matter. We know what he's trying to say. The raccoons are a nuisance. They're parasitic. They're dirty. George doesn't know that it's Linus, of course. He thinks it's raccoons. If George were to call Linus vermin, I think that he would be the least popular character in the entire game. Everyone bats so hard for Linus. I think it's interesting as well how two of the dialogue options are to call Linus's actions disgusting and saying that he's leeching off others. That last one in particular has a very parasitic vibe, and it ties in with what we just said about beggars being like parasitic on society, which we know this isn't true. You and me. I don't need to explain to you why that's incorrect. We all know that people are largely unhoused due to structural issues and not personal failings. It's cheaper to house people than it is to police the homeless. A capitalist government is parasitic on the taxpayer. Sorry, the communist is coming back out again. Get back in there, comrade. So this scene, in using all of this language, is deliberately tying in these themes, these comparisons that are long and well documented. But the scene's conclusion is that Linus isn't doing anything wrong. It's definitely not tying in all of this to like make Linus look bad, to say that he's vermin. The scene is very much on his side. And we can see that if we pick any of the other choices. This choice kind of sucks because 3 out of the 4 options are just straight up mean. It's disgusting. It's illegal. Get a job. Old people when I tell them I'm a YouTuber. But this choice and this scene as a whole makes more sense if we see it all through this lens of destigmatization. So if you pick that it's disgusting, Linus says, disgusting to you maybe. To me, it's a way of life. And I haven't gotten sick yet. I only eat things that look fresh. If you say, that's illegal, it's private property, he says, I don't believe in private property. Besides, what do you want me to do? I need this food to survive. Have a heart. If you say he should get a job and stop leeching, he says, sigh. I love that he literally just says sigh. That's such a mood. Sigh. Not everyone's cut out for this world, player. You don't know what it's like to be me. I'm not harming anyone. I just want to live my life in my own way. Is that so wrong? So in general, these are all pushbacks. They're ways to defend Linus and his way of life. I think the reason there are 3 different options to be like harsh to him is to deliberately catch players with those opinions. You know, like Concerned Ape was thinking if there's a player who loves private property, they would click that option and they would get like schooled and maybe their opinion would be changed. It's another kind of morality scene in that the game has a very specific point of view that it's refusing to see any nuance of. But this time, you know, I agree with the game, so that's nice for once. Stardew Valley thinks waste is bad. But it's kind of interesting. Okay, so if we look at the rest of the scene, Gus offers Linus some food, and Linus kind of looks sad. He looks down. He looks embarrassed, frustrated. Basically, he's like not super psyched about it. And my interpretation of this originally was that he didn't actually want the food from Gus. He was frustrated at the charity. In his 8 Heart event, we'll see that he turns down an offer of food from Robin because he's got enough. He's doing fine. And he says here to you that everything will go to waste if he doesn't take it. You can answer, food shouldn't go to waste. So to Linus, it's all about waste, right? So when Gus deliberately cooks food to give it to Linus, it's kind of redundant because that's not minimizing waste. It would be wasteful of Linus to not accept the food. And so Gus will just keep making stuff for him, keep like using more resources as opposed to minimizing that. So it would make sense that Linus would be kind of bummed about that. He doesn't want to be rude, but it does kind of go against his very specific principles. But that line that he has here, if you mention about private property, kind of goes against all of that. I don't believe in private property. Besides, what do you want me to do? I need this food to survive. Have a heart. Suddenly, instead of just doing it to minimize waste, he's doing it to survive. Linus's whole thing, as we've discussed, has been about choice. He makes it very clear that he chooses to live this way. He implies, via talking about waste, that he chooses to eat this way. I mean, we all need food to survive, but the way that he says, have a heart, implies that, if he couldn't get this food, he just couldn't eat. And we know that that's just not true. Linus will request things from you on the help wanted board, including diamonds, and he'll pay you for it, so it's not like he's broke. He has money. Getting food out of the bin isn't his only option, but this line makes it seem like it is. And I think it goes back to that destigmatization. If Concerned Ape was writing this, like writing the choice text and then trying to figure out like a counter argument to them, he writes, it's disgusting, and then he's like, well, I haven't gotten sick. If he writes, that's illegal, that's George's private property, what's he going to write as the counter argument to that? He can't have his game take the stance of, I don't care that it's private property. Private property is inherently theft. Because he's a coward. He just has Linus say he doesn't believe in private property, which is very individualistic to Linus. And then the strong part of that argument is meant to be the second half. That's meant to be the sentiment to like change hearts and minds. So I feel like that's why it doesn't super track with the rest of his character and dialogue. Literally everything else in the game implies that Linus, if he wanted, he could just go to Pierre's and like buy a meal deal, get an egg and cress sandwich, maybe an all-day breakfast. But he chooses not to. And we're going to stick with that as our facts. Maybe it's not, that Concerned Ape himself was trying super hard to convince people. Maybe it's just that Linus himself in this scene couldn't think of a better counter-argument. But I don't really feel that way. Linus isn't usually as preachy as this, because it does feel preachy. Oh, you want me to die? Is that it? You want me to starve? Where's your humanity? So yeah, I mean, there's a bit of a flaw in the writing, but I had to go into the game and pick these options myself in order to see what he says, because I couldn't find them anywhere online. So I'm assuming that 99.99% of players pick the good option, so it's not a huge deal. If you believe in private property that much to pick that line, then you deserve some out-of-character dialogue. It's a very Lewis move of you. Not cool. I also think it's interesting how he says he's sorry at the start of the scene. The very first thing he says is, it was me, I'm sorry. But then he goes on to say, I feel good about what I'm doing. I'm not harming anyone. So we can see through this that he's used to kind of placating people. At this point, you don't necessarily have a bunch of hearts with Linus. You could have literally 0. So like we said, he doesn't trust you. He's expecting you to criticize him, to come down on him. So his instinct is to apologize, even though he's not sorry, because he doesn't think he did anything wrong. I also like that sentiment just for him as a character in general. I feel good about what I'm doing. I'm not harming anyone. I feel like that is his life motto. It's very fitting. That's a good way to just sum him up as a character. He feels good about what he's doing. He's not harming anyone. King. I did also notice that George in this scene says the raccoons have been causing a real mess. We can assume in this scene that there are no raccoons. Linus says he won't go in George's bin anymore. You can tell him the raccoons are gone for good. Like, the implication there is that Linus was the raccoons, and now he's gone for good. So the only thing that could have been causing a real mess is Linus. I don't really believe that Linus would have been causing a mess in George's bin. He says he isn't harming anyone. I can't see him leaving a bunch of George's rubbish on the ground, making a mess, and still saying that he's not causing harm. Maybe this is just George, like, kind of hamming it up to get you to do this favour for him, saying they've been making a mess so that the stakes are higher, so you're more likely to help him. Or maybe he just assumes that there's a mess based on, like, previous experience with raccoons. I don't know. What do you think? Did Linus make a real mess? Let me know in the comments. Personally, I just don't think he would do that. So there must be some other kind of explanation. I also think it's important to mention how this scene functions in the game overall. You know how we said that you barely need any friendship points with Linus to get this scene? I think it's because it's kind of like a tutorial on how you can search the bins in the game. Like, all you need is to have a vague knowledge of Linus, and then pretty close to the start of the game, you see this scene, and he tells you he finds a lot of good stuff in the bins, and you go, hey, maybe I can look in the bins. And hey presto, you can. You garbage can. So it's got that dual function. It's not just a Linus heart event. I think if it was, it would be a 2 heart event instead of a 0 heart event. So let's move on. We get some hearts. So when you're at 3 hearts with Linus, he sends you a recipe in the mail. 4 Fs. Sorry, I literally just keyboard smashed for this save file. How are you doing? I've enclosed some instructions on how to make one of my favourite fish recipes. Linus. And you get the recipe of sashimi. In Stardew Valley, there are some recipes you can only get from things like this, making friends with someone or like doing a favour for them. So this is the only way that you can get this recipe. We're going to talk about this more in a minute, but I think it will be more fruitful as part of our discussion of the 4 heart scene. So let's get into that. If you enter the mountains between 8 PM and midnight, you find Linus at the fire by his tent. He's happy to see you. Tells you to come stand by the fire pit. It feels great. He says he was hoping you'd come by sometime. Then he looks stressed, looks away and down. Says he wanted to say sorry for mistrusting you at first. Most people don't treat him well, so he's learned to be cautious. But you've been uncommonly nice to him. You're a unique person, and he considers you a good friend. The player reacts well, and Linus walks over to his tent, says he wants to show you something. Come inside. You follow him into his tent, and we get these sound effects. After, Linus says, there we go. It's a special kind of fish bait he makes. It's top quality stuff. He'd eat it himself. He says he wants you to have the recipe. You leave the tent having learned how to craft wild bait. So wild bait can be used when you're fishing to catch 2 fish at once. I've never used it in the game personally because I can't be bothered. I think it takes fibre to craft it as well, and I'm always using fibre to make tea saplings. So we said before that he teaches you how to make sashimi, which is a cooking recipe. This isn't unique to Linus. Like half the recipes in this game you get through NPCs, like in the mail. Shane even teaches you a couple recipes. He teaches you how to make strange bun, and I love that. Love that for him. Get a load of these strange buns. Don't worry, this isn't the only Shane reference in this video. I know that you're all worried about that, but we're coming back to him. He's always here. But wild bait isn't a cooking recipe, it's a crafting recipe. And NPCs teaching you crafting recipes is much less common. The large majority of crafting recipes in the game you get either through leveling up or buying them or completing special orders. There are only like a few people who can teach them to you. So this is a kind of step up from that 3-heart letter. Maybe we can see the 3-heart letter as like kind of testing the waters, giving you something that's not quite so meaningful, testing that trust. And then here in this scene, he's fully ready to apologize to you. He's more open. So when we're talking about Linus and his arc, I think it's really all about trust. He says in this scene he's sorry for mistrusting you. As we said earlier, he's got a lot of these lines saying he doesn't know you very well, he doesn't need new friends. He has a line at 2 hearts that I didn't mention. I have to be wary of strangers. Most people don't like a wild man. And we saw before how Robin refers to him as a wild man. So he's wary, he's cautious, he's used to people either ridiculing him or just keeping like a watchful distance, like Robin does. And you don't want to do any of those things. You want to be his friend. You're talking to him over and over and you're giving him gifts and he's suspicious of that. But now at 4 hearts, he's kind of accepted your good intentions. He's decided to trust you. At 4 hearts with Linus, you get loads more dialogue from him, which we'll go into in a little while, but I want to stay with that idea for now, that he's trusting you now that you have 4 hearts. So in my Stardew Valley Romance Deep Dive series, which I don't know if you've seen, I've done 10 of the 12 characters so far, and if we think about the 4 heart scenes, it does really seem to be this point of trust. I'm going to spoil 10 of 12 4 heart scenes here, so skip here. I keep having to do that with this video, sorry. So 4 hearts is the point where Alex opens up to you about his parents. 4 hearts is where you see Sam and Penny interacting with their parents, which is a big vulnerability for them, even if it wasn't intentional. 4 hearts is where Haley asks you for your help with the jar. It's where Maru asks you what she should do about the dropped sample. 4 hearts is where Abigail was trying to escape her parents, but she was happy hanging out with you. With Harvey, it's a little bit more complicated because we said in his video, it's like 4 hearts is where he knows he's supposed to open up, but he just like can't. And kind of the opposite with Elliot. He was so keen to open up. He opened up early in the 2 heart scene because he was kind of desperate. So his 4 heart scene isn't where that like changes for him. And 4 hearts with Leah is where you find out about Kel. So we can see through all of these 4 heart scenes that there's these themes of like trust and vulnerability. And vulnerability is really just a kind of trust. Like for the majority of the characters, 4 hearts really seems to be where they consider you a friend. And the outliers to this, you know, like Harvey and Elliot, they're outliers for a reason. And we can see that with Linus. He says here that he considers you a good friend. You would think that he might be a bit harder to win over than most people, based on how he says that most people don't treat him well. You would think that he might have become like super jaded. But I think that this shows that he is a trusting guy overall. He sees the good in people. He's just, like he says, cautious. So with Linus, trust and sharing are very tied together. As we said, he sends you a recipe at 3 hearts, kind of like testing that trust. Not a huge deal because like loads of people send you recipes, like quite like a low level of commitment. But here at 4 hearts, he commits. He teaches you a crafting recipe. More of a big deal, big symbol of trust. We'll be coming back to this at the end of his arc, so hold on to that little scrap of info. Trust equals sharing. Keep that in there. Before we move on from this scene, I have to address the noise. He says he wants to show you something. Come inside the tent. And then we get this noise. What does this make you think of? I'll tell you what it made me think of. I don't know if I'm going to end up having to blur that. I don't know if that's too obscene. At this point in my script writing process, I became very interested in the possibility of Linus and player fanfiction. There is a non-zero amount. There's not a bunch, but it does exist. A lot of it is very wholesome. Linus makes you some jam. You and Linus go on a walk. Some of it is less wholesome. I did read a fanfiction based on the Full Heart scene. Based on, you know, what might have happened. I'm not going to link it, but it was under Linus/female player on AO3, so do with that information what you will. I am exclusively bringing this up because I think it's funny. I wrote in the script, I don't know if I can look at him the same after I read that fanfiction, but in real life, after I read that, I went and read... But in real life, after I read that Linus fanfiction, I read like 8 Shane fanfictions to cleanse the palette, so I think I'll be fine. So let's talk about all the new dialogue that you unlock from Linus at Full Hearts. As I said, you get a ton more dialogue. His dialogue basically doubles, which makes sense because, as we said, he trusts you now. You're friends. I'm sure you understand why I'm cautious of strangers. But let's put that in the past, okay? You and I are friends now, I think. How have you been, my young friend? Thanks for stopping by. I was actually feeling a little lonely this morning. So, have you discovered anything interesting in the mines? He's calling you his friend. He's admitting that he's lonely. He's enjoying the friendship instead of pushing it away. He's probably been on his own for a long time, so yeah, now he gets to reap the benefits of friendship, the companionship. We also get a ton more of dialogue from him to do with his worldview. So now we're going to spend some time, we're going to do a mini section discussing the philosophy of Linus. I say mini section, I just looked through and it's 5 pages, so buckle in. It's gonna do. Wait for it. Does that show up well? I have the Golden Lewis left over from the Penny video. And I was trying to think of a way that I could put something up there to be this is a section about Linus's philosophy. And what better to say that he's the anti-Lewis. He's the opposite of Lewis. Lewis represents capitalism and greed. So let's try to get a good solid picture of Linus's worldview, his philosophy, his ethics. We've seen so far that he has this zero waste mindset. He takes food from the bin so it doesn't go to waste. This kind of attitude is very tied into environmentalism, and we can see this further with a Linus quote: "Whenever you catch a fish, take a moment to thank it for its sacrifice. Even if you don't believe in the spirit of the fish, it's a good mental exercise. We need to be aware of our effect on the environment." So if we ignore the spirituality of that for a second, he's saying if you take a fish out of the ecosystem, you should thank it. It's a good mental exercise because you're becoming aware of your consumption instead of just standing there and playing the fishing mini game for ages and just pulling 20 fish out of the ocean. You should thank every individual fish so that the impact of it feels greater, so that you're more aware of what you're taking, which is also very environmentalist. Just so we define our terms, environmentalism is an attempt to balance relations between humans and the various natural systems on which they depend, in such a way that all the components are accorded a proper degree of sustainability. He's a leave only footprints kind of guy. We can also see this spirituality coming out in a few more lines. I have everything I need to survive, and more. Nature plays a wonderful tune, if only you can learn to listen. I also spend a lot of time reading. One of the reasons I stopped in the valley was for the great library. You can learn a lot from trees. Spend time with them and they might tell you their secrets. Go in peace, young one. You can learn to survive in the wild. I have. I think we all have a hidden urge to return to nature. It's just a little scary to make the leap. So it's this kind of spiritual naturalism, this belief in nature is everything you need, everything you can learn from. He says we all have an urge to return to nature, which I take to mean as he believes that we came from nature. Whether he means that in the spiritual sense, ashes to ashes, dust to dust, or he means because early humans lived as nomadic foragers. I don't know. Either's fine. He also says about learning a lot from trees. So trees are quite important spiritual figures, with this cycle of the leaves falling in autumn, dead in winter, coming back in spring, only for the cycle to repeat. It's kind of representative in a lot of cultures and religions of death, growth, and rebirth. Buddha found enlightenment under a tree. I could talk about the big tree in Elden Ring here, but I haven't played that game, but from what I've picked up, it's kind of part of this theme as well. Trees are very tied in with life. We plant trees when babies are born. We spread people's ashes or we bury them under trees. I remember when I left sixth form, which is high school, we planted trees and I didn't really question why. Honestly, I think that they were just coincidentally planting trees and they got us to do it for them. But I guess it was meant to symbolize the start of our adult lives. And there's a certain peace in the knowledge that this tree I planted, no matter how many years ago, even if I forget that I planted it, it's still there. It's doing its own thing, growing. The point I'm making is that it's this feeling that makes you feel very, very small. The idea that you're just one person out of billions. That all this nature around you like does not give a single fuck if you're there or not. That humans like 100,000 years ago looked at the sky the same as you do. They looked at the same moon and they thought it was beautiful. It's like I said in the Abigail video. It's the somber ambiance. And that can either like bring you peace, or it can make you feel insignificant, or you can feel kind of peaceful in that insignificance. And I think that that last one is Linus. He says that you can learn from the trees, that nature plays a wonderful tune. He recognizes its power, its age, its wisdom. The same as how you can look at a tree and learn lessons about birth and death and regrowth. There are certain simple universal truths in this world. We're all gonna die. Nobody chose to be born. Life is beautiful. Life is kind of an insane miracle when you think about it for more than like 1 second. But we're too busy with our YouTubes and our MySpace and our fax machines. Those kind of universal truths get lost. We get distracted. Linus says, "It's so easy to get caught up in the noise of modern life. Your best years will pass you by in a formless blur. That's why you've got to learn to slow down." So I love that. He's very spiritual, simple living, anti-consumerist, because he's got this wisdom to him. He chooses to live out here. It brings him peace. Linus also says, "I have my own reasons for living alone like this. Some things are best left unsaid. I should do some foraging." So this is vague. This is very vague. We'll bring this up again during our baseless speculation, but for now, all we can really learn from this quote is that he has a personal reason for living alone, and it's best left unsaid, implying that it's like bad or it upsets him to talk about, and then he changes the subject. So yeah, we're going to save the baseless speculation for later. But for now, I think that this links to another of his quotes. "I don't have many responsibilities, so I spend my time thinking. You have to understand your thoughts before you can control them." He wants to understand his thoughts to control them. Bestie, same. It's very philosophical, it's very spiritual, it's basically like meditation, turning entirely inwards, learning more about himself. It's interesting how he wants to, number one, understand them, number two, control them. This is something that seems to come with age. I'm only 27, but like in the last few years, I've had so many moments of being like, realizing why I think a certain way, or like why my brain works how it does. And it feels like I've cracked the whole system open. It literally happened to me yesterday. It's so easy to convince yourself of certain things being like universal truths. I have to do this or I'm a failure. But it's a skill to be able to be like, why do I think that way? What taught me that? Why am I still holding on to it? I do a lot of negative self-talk. Inside my brain, I hate myself. I'm so mean. And I know fundamentally that I do that because it's a lot easier to just believe I'm some failure of a person than to like wrap my brain around the complexity and the nuances of life. For those moments when I'm calling myself an idiot, I can just like give up for a moment, and it feels nice. It feels relaxing to just be like, there's nothing I can do. I just am this way. And just because I understand that that's where the thoughts come from, that doesn't mean I can necessarily do anything about it. That's a whole different skill. But you have to understand them as that first step in order to control them, in order to get them to like change. Because otherwise you're just kind of gaslighting yourself. If you understand your thoughts, you can see them as valid. They're there for a reason. They didn't fall out of a coconut tree. And then you can start the work of trying to unlearn things. You have to find the big knot before you can start to untangle it. And Linus is old. He knows this. He's seemingly undone a lot of big knots. I feel like with this quote, we can say that this is part of the reason that he lives alone like this, to do this like introspection. Maybe he's suffered with his mental health or with mental illness, and this connection with nature, this return to simplicity that we were talking about, is like a form of therapy. Maybe he had like a breakdown. Maybe he just couldn't function anymore with modern life. And so he came to live in nature to spend some time thinking about those important things, those universal truths. I think he's been living like this for a while. He does reference having travelled widely. So I think we're meeting Linus at a point where he's, for the most part, healed. He understands himself. He controls his thoughts. He's at peace. I'm not sure at what hearts he has this dialogue. It doesn't say on the wiki, and then I couldn't find it in the files. But he said it to me in the game. During all these years, I've discovered a few secrets about life. You'll have to find out for yourself. And honestly, I think that is deep as hell. That's my favourite Linus line. Because how many books, memoirs, things like that are out there of people who have had certain experiences, certain revelations about life, trying to teach them to you? Don't make the same mistakes. Learn from my mistakes. As a young person, there's this pressure every time I read a book or watch something that makes me feel like life affirmed. This pressure to like carry that with me from now on, to learn from it, to absorb that lesson like permanently. But Linus just says, I've discovered some stuff about life. You'll have to find out for yourself. And I love that. Because no amount of personal essays or memoirs are going to match the experience of like going out there, making mistakes, learning it for yourself. No matter how much people try to distill their experience into like a helpful ebook, those secrets about life aren't ever going to hit in the same way if you just read them. We all have our own journeys to go through, and to package a life lesson is to discourage the journey, to emphasize the end point. I love a good inspirational book or movie every now and then, but fundamentally life isn't meant to be written down and summarized and read. It's meant to be experienced. It's been 15 years since the 2009 niche art house film Hannah Montana the movie, and some of you guys still don't get it. It's The Climb! But Linus gets it. He wants you to find out for yourself. He's not just going to tell you. He recognizes that you're young and he's old. He's got experiences that you don't, that he's had time and hindsight. And he sees that you're much earlier on your journey and he's happy for you. He doesn't try and like cut it short for you. He wants to let you walk your own path. Such a king. Love you, Linus. Linus, if you're watching. Just kidding. He's not going to have YouTube. So if any of you guys know him, let him know. Okay, so we've learned that Linus is based as hell. Respect the earth. Know yourself. There's always going to be another mountain. We're always going to want to make it move. So now let's move on to Seven Hearts. At Seven Hearts, Linus sends you what is literally the exact same note for Fs. How are you doing? I've enclosed some instructions on how to make one of my favourite fish recipes. Linus. But this time he includes a different fish recipe. Fish tacos. Amazing. Once again, there's not a ton to say about this. It's just a recipe. Quite low stakes. I think this is just like a bonus. You're giving him gifts all the time. He's returning the favour. So we will quickly move on to his 8-heart event. So there's 2 different ways this scene can go, and we're going to go through both of them, because then we'll discuss like everything at once. On a day that's not raining, if you exit Robin's house between 9 AM and 5 PM, you see Linus foraging from a bush. He walks off, past Robin's house, when Robin and the player exit, and they all run into each other. Robin, shocked, says, "Eep." Then she says, "It's Linus, right?" She thinks for a while and asks if he's hungry, offers to make him some lunch. Linus declines the offer, says he had great luck foraging today. Robin says okay, then turns to the player, says it looks like you have something to say. You get a choice. I'm displeased that Linus is doing well. I'd like to invite Linus to live on the farm with me. I said I'm pleased he's doing well. Linus walks closer to you, thanks you, says you had him worried. He thought you were going to ask him to move onto the farm with you. Wink. He says you're his closest friend in the valley. You've never tried to fix him. You respect his way of life, even if you don't understand it. Rude. I think we've established by now that I do understand it. Bitch. He really appreciates that. He walks away a little, and the player is happy. Linus asks if you can smell the sweet aroma of ripe berries, then runs off. We fade to black, and Robin comments, "What a sweetheart." If instead you invite Linus to live on the farm with you, Linus is shocked. Robin says, "Wow, that's a great idea and so generous." She can build him a cozy house. He'll finally have running water, heat, a roof over his head, just like the rest of us. Isn't that wonderful? Linus looks down, hesitates, before saying, "No thanks." Robin is floored, reacting with a "What?" and collapsing back into the door. Linus says he appreciates the kindness, but he's told you before. He chooses to live this way. He likes to be alone most of the time. He likes the quiet sounds, moving with the rhythm of nature. It's a way of life that he's comfortable with. He doesn't ever want to change that. Robin says she never thought about it that way. Linus walks closer to you, says he cherishes your friendship, and knows you do too. But you don't need to try to help him. He knows best how to live his own life. Okay? He walks away a little, and the player seems unsure. He comments on the ripe berries, runs off, and we fade to black. So if you pick that first option, I'm just glad Linus is doing well. He says, "Thanks, player. You had me worried there. I thought you were going to ask me to move onto the farm with you." Wink. And that is an absolutely insane thing for him to say, unprompted, because he is just directly referencing the choice you just made. You as a player would have seen that choice and considered both of the options, considering asking him to move onto the farm with you, but ultimately decided against it. And here he is directly referencing that. And he winks. What does he know? He's metagaming. I feel like this scene as a whole is another scene kind of like that Zero Heart scene, where it's, sure, kind of talking about Linus as a character, establishing some stuff about him, but it's also kind of like a vehicle for the dev to talk to the player. And Linus saying this here, all of this stuff about how you don't try and fix him, is just establishing to the player that they made the right choice. They don't need to be like preached to. You get it. But if you pick that other choice, it's the opposite. Similar to the Zero Heart scene, Linus assumes this role of like a teacher, informing you of why you're wrong. Ding dong, your opinion is wrong. He gives you this long talk about how he chooses to live out here, how you don't need to fix him or help him. So I feel like while the Zero Heart scene was kind of preempting some pushback for a character like this, the 8 Heart scene is a reaction to people's reactions. This 8 Heart scene was added in version 1.3.27, which released in 2018, which is 2.5 years after the game came out. And I don't know this for sure, but it sure feels like this scene is a reaction to people constantly asking the dev whether Linus can live with them. If you go on the Stardew Valley subreddit in 2024, people are still posting, why can't I let Linus live with me? And it's because he has that dialogue of, you know, people throwing rocks at his tent, someone spray painted it, someone destroyed it. People want him to be safe. It's a kind thing, it's a nice thing. They want to be able to make him safe. But with that, they're kind of misunderstanding Linus and his philosophy. So I feel like this scene is here to tell those players that would pick that option that he's fine. He's doing fine. He doesn't need your help. And like, that's fine in theory. But I have issues in the execution. First of all, I wish Robin wasn't here. And that's not just because I hate Robin. Watch my Mary video. But it's because she makes it about her. You say literally one thing, I'd like to ask Linus to come live with me. And she takes that and she runs with it. Starts talking about building him a house. Saying, isn't that wonderful? Kind of pressuring him to say yes. Acting like he's already said yes. But that's not your fault. You chose the option to invite Linus to live on the farm with you. That's entirely different from building him a house. People still post asking if he can live with them because they just want him to move his tent onto their land so that he's safe. That might still not be something that he wants, but it's an entirely different question, asking him to move his tent as opposed to building him a house. And Linus's response is to Robin, but he directs it to you, acting like you wanted to build him a house. When you didn't. That's not what you said at all. I guess that Robin is here because the player doesn't speak, and so she's like making an obvious stance that Linus can then rebuke. Robin as well calls him a wild man. She thinks of him as homeless. She thinks of him as in need. You know, she offers to make him lunch. And that's probably what the dev thought people picking that option were thinking too. They all want to just build him a house because they think he's homeless. They don't get him. So Linus explains the nuance of his philosophy to those players, the people who picked that option. But it's so frustrating because it misses this whole other nuance. I think there should have been 3 options. The 2 that exist right now, and then a third one asking him to just move the tent. And he could say like, thanks, I appreciate the offer. I appreciate that you understand that I don't want a house, but I'm happy where I am. The rocks don't bother me that much. Because if you picked that option, it wouldn't be like you fundamentally misunderstood him. It's that you care about his safety. You worry about him. You're his friend. But this game has historically been bad at like understanding its own community reaction. I'm talking exclusively about the Penny 2 Heart scene, which I discussed at length in her video. I'm entirely just making shit up now, but it's like the dev wants to address these things, but the addressing is never nuanced or thought out enough to the point where it makes any difference. People still hate the Penny 2 Heart scene. People still want Linus to live with them. I mean, you tried. And we have that contradiction here to the line in the Zero Heart scene. He declines Robin's offer of lunch because he's got enough. But in the Zero Heart scene, he said he needed the food from the bin to survive. He says he's had great luck foraging in this scene, so it could vary depending on the season. But this scene seems to want us to believe that Linus is like 100% self-reliant, doesn't need your help in any way, when that line from the Zero Heart scene implies something different. But like I said about that scene, I feel like that's there as a kind of argument, a defense of that kind of behavior in general. I feel like the intention for Linus as a character is this 8 Heart scene, where he's this like independent, self-sufficient girl boss who doesn't need your charity. He specifically says you don't have to help him, so I think that that is the intended reading, that he doesn't need your help. So, if we think about his arc so far, in both versions of this 8 Heart scene, he talks about how he values your friendship. He says he cherishes it. You're his best friend in the valley. This is a huge distance from the 4 Heart scene where he was just opening up, or that 4 Heart line where he seems a little bit unsure if you're friends. You and I are friends now, I think. He doesn't think anymore. He knows. And he feels comfortable enough with you to like explain at length why you're wrong about his way of life, if you are. We said his arc is about trust, and he's slowly been becoming more trusting of you. First with sharing, both through recipes and with dialogue, and now with this kind of vulnerability, this real friendship. He doesn't feel like he has to accept your offer. He doesn't like bend over backwards with gratitude before declining. He just says no thanks, and he explains himself because he trusts that you're good enough friends that you won't take offense. He trusts you as a person enough that he knows that you won't like go set fire to his tent out of malice. He's gone through this process of being wary and defensive and isolating himself, saying he didn't want any new friends, then opening himself up, accepting kindness and accepting friendship. So, there is one last thing that we need to cover when it comes to Linus's arc, and that is Leo. I'm going to have to move Linus or I'll cover him up. I'm going to put him in his tent. There we go. In your house. Well, now I feel like I have to move the bush. There we go, how's that? Oh, I hate it, great. Oh well. So if you haven't played Stardew Valley and you want everything to be kind of like a surprise, or if you're playing the game and you haven't finished the community center yet, basically if you don't want Ginger Island spoilers, you are going to have to go into the chapters and you're going to have to skip right to baseless speculation. I'm very sorry. Bye. I'll see you soon. So basically in the 1.5 update of the game, as like end game content, this place called Ginger Island was added to the game. This tropical island with a new fighting area, more farmland, secrets, and stuff to discover. And we got a new NPC. Leo. He's a kid who lives on Ginger Island, and basically through a cutscene we learn that there was a big storm that capsized the ship he was on. His parents didn't make it, and he washed up on the island. Through Leo's heart events, we learn that he considers the parrots on the island to be his family. He like speaks parrot language with them, and he loves them very much, but he kind of wants to be where the people are. I want to be where the people are. Where the people are. Where there are other kids. So in Leo's 6-part cutscene, the player and Willy bring Linus to meet him. Linus squawks at him in parrot language, and Leo squawks back. Linus says he wants Leo to come to Stardew Valley with him. He's a child of nature too. You might say we're birds of a feather, but I'm getting old, and I'd like to teach someone all that I've learned before moving on. Willy encourages Leo, and so does the player, but Linus makes sure to emphasize it's Leo's choice. Leo decides to go after a parrot tells him they're happy for him, want him to start the next chapter of his life, and whatever happens, they'll always be his family forever. Overnight, the parrots build him a little house in a tree near to Linus's tent. Leo's 9-heart event shows him having a great time living in the valley, the very first scene of which is him cooking over the fire with Linus. We see a montage, then he gets back to his house in the tree and tells his parrot he feels like he belongs here. It's a beautiful world, friends, and I'm glad to be part of it. Why am I crying in the club right now? This game, man. It has such a way of making you feel like grateful for life. Like Linus mentioning he wants to pass on his knowledge. Leo being so fresh to the town and seeing everything with new eyes. It's a beautiful world, friends. So cute, love it. Anyway, so this is a very, very, very cute relationship that I love so much. So much. Leo is Linus's neighbour. He visits him in his tent. He has lots of dialogue lines about him. Linus has been teaching me about all the wild food in the valley. There's a lot of good stuff out here. Though, I do kind of miss having golden walnuts for breakfast every morning. Uncle Linus says I should cook my fish before eating it. I'm having a hard time getting used to it. So dry. Linus taught me how to make a special spiceberry rubbed fish. He says if I eat enough of it, it will keep me warm this winter. Uncle Linus, that's so cute. And they stand together at basically every festival from now on, when previously Linus was alone. And I have a visual aid. Look at this, ready? So cute. So yeah, they're together at festivals. At the Feast of the Winter Star, Leo will say, Linus feels uncomfortable about joining in, so I'm going to keep him company. We'll have our own little feast. Mashed winter root and spiceberry fish. So cute, oh my god. I love their relationship. I saw this comment on Reddit about how Leo would bite someone for Linus, and he looks like a bitey kid. He does. He looks like he'd give you a little bite, doesn't he? He's got some gnashes in there. So, if we think about all of this in terms of Linus and his development, this content was added in the 1.5 update, and it's all kind of end game content. So you need to have finished the community center to even get to Ginger Island. So I think we're safe to put these events after the 8-heart scene, after a certain amount of Linus's arc. I'm going to put his last 2 hearts up because I feel bad about leaving him at 8 hearts. Do you remember what we said right at the beginning? The thing I told you to keep in your little brain. Trust equals sharing. The 3-heart note, the 4-heart scene, the 7-heart note, all of the recipes, all of the dialogue. And Leo and Linus's relationship is all about sharing. He teaches him everything he knows, all his secrets and his little tips and tricks. He just opens himself up so much to be potentially completely taken advantage of. He trusts. He trusts. He trusts so much. He gives everything he has to this little boy. I'm getting emotional. It's so cute. Imagine Linus when you met him being introduced to Leo. He would be like, I don't trust you. You weird bird boy. But I think you as the player have like proven to him something that he might have forgotten. That people can be good. There's a YouTube video by Exerve2er. So if I pronounced that wrong, which I did, that my husband sent me, and it's called The Answer Is Not a Hut in the Woods. It was really good. I would recommend it. It's more of a podcast really than a YouTube video. I listened to it while I wash my hair. But it's about this guy's like search for like meaning and purpose. He does that Appalachian Trail to like find himself. But in the end, he realized spending all that time on his own was the wrong thing to do. He spent the whole time thinking about other people. The best parts of the journey were experiences with other people. And when he got home, his friends helped him work through what he was going through. And at the end, he says that Christopher McCandless, another guy who thought it was a great idea to go isolate himself in the woods alone, had it right in a note that he wrote to himself. Happiness is only real when shared. I feel like Linus realizes that through his friendship with you. Being alone and thinking can only get you so far. Sharing, connecting. That's what life is about. In passing on his knowledge to Leo, Linus is showing that knowledge he gained from the trees. Birth, death, regrowth. Everything he has can be shared and passed on so that it may live again. I love you, Linus. And your tech tips. I don't watch that guy. My husband just told me, you have to make a Linus tech tips joke. Now, let's get into some baseless speculation. Scene change. Wow. Hello. Hyper sexy down to bottom girl like me. Just had to get hyped up. Look, I'm in a different room and I can move around. You can't catch me. Where am I? Oh, this is going to be a different energy. Look at me, I can go. God, I'm so sweaty. It's a hot one in Britain. Let me see what temperature it is. 25. And 25 in the US is 77. It's a very wet heat though. Okay, welcome to Baseless Speculation. I am your host, Fiona, from the YouTube channel. Yes, I did make this shirt. Thank you. And I did tie my bra together at the back so that I could wear it. I'm not wearing that hoodie again. It's fucking boiling. The pattern was called Not Knit Tank by Just the Worsted. You're welcome. Apologies in advance for being really sweaty. Okay, so take everything I'm about to say with a grain of salt. That first part, pure facts. Spitting fire. This part, wild conjecture. So we have 2 topics to cover. Part 2.1. Who is throwing all of these fucking stones at his tent? That's what I want to know. That's what we're going to find out. And the spray painting. I mostly went with the stones, but the spray painting factors in too. Part 2.2 will be, who is he? Who is he? Where did you find him? That's a reference for British people. I dream of cracking locks, throwing my life to the wolves or the ocean rocks, crashing into him tonight. Okay. So I read a bunch of Reddit posts and some of my YouTube comments about who could be throwing these rocks at Linus's tent. If we refresh our memory with the quote, someone was throwing rocks at my tent last night. I just had to wait it out. Poor Pookie. So yeah, I read a bunch of Reddit posts, I read a bunch of comments of people's theories, and I wrote down every single name that anyone said or any like theory that anyone proposed. And we're going to go through all of them. There are going to be 3 tiers. This is how I organize myself. So I've got part 1, part 2. So this is part 2.1. And then it's tier 1 of, so it's part 2.1.1. So yeah, we've got 3 tiers. We're going to go through all of them from the most baseless to the most plausible. We're not going to answer the question, but we're going to have a good time. All right, let's do this. Tier 1, baseless speculation. I hope this works. When I tried to do this before, everything literally just fell down. Wish me luck. Suspect number 1. I put it on there too much. Okay. Suspect number 1. Shane. Incorrect. Innocent. Suspect number 2. No, I'm kidding. Wait, why does it say... Why does it say that? What? He wouldn't say that. That's very out of character for him. It's not very funny, darling. I don't know why you would say such ridiculous things to me. There we go. Okay, so I saw a few people suggest Shane because they said, oh, he could have thrown the rocks when he was drunk. A lot of the theories are like this, of people just being like, it could have been him. Who's to say it wasn't? Like, someone commented that they see him as the kind of person who is like angry at the world and could hypothetically take that out on other people. And this is baseless speculation. That's the name of the tier. And I disagree. Shane as a character is very self-destructive. His whole thing is that he like takes everything out on himself. So it would be really out of character for him to go and like take it out on someone else like this. Also, I'm pretty sure that he just never goes up into the mountains, like ever. Have you ever seen him up there? I haven't. And I'm like a stalker. And he says when you're married that he's out of shape. And you know that that shit is uphill. It's a mountain. He's not going to willingly go up a hill. Come on. Sorry, I forgot to put lipstick on. So my personal baseless speculation is that Shane and Linus would be friends because Shane would know that Jojo Mart throws a bunch of stuff out. Like, you know how company policies for those kind of places say, like, you can't take it home, you have to throw it out even if it's perfectly good. So in my head, he gives Linus a heads up and they, like, become bros. But I'm, like, really Shane-pilled, so maybe bias. And we don't have to come to a verdict on that, but our verdict for whether he was throwing these rocks, not guilty. Leave him alone. It's nice to be able to move around. I'll put in a picture on the screen of how tiny that room is that I usually film the videos. It gets so claustrophobic in there. Oh no, my spare room is so small. Shut up, Fiona. All right, and this brings us to suspect number 2. Jodie. I have no idea why this person who commented this thought it was Jodie. They just commented something like, no, it was Jodie, with such confidence that I was like, okay, I'll write that down. I guess if you squint, it could be because she's like frustrated, she's repressed. Maybe she's mad at Linus for like living the life that she wants. Like, she says that she wants to spend more time outside. She says she wants fewer responsibilities. And Linus spends all of his time outside and has no responsibilities. But that doesn't therefore equal she's throwing a bunch of rocks at his tent. She's a nice person. And she's busy. She doesn't have time to be going out and throwing a bunch of rocks. That would be a hobby. And she has 2 kids. No hobbies for you. So for this one, I'm pretty much just going to say the verdict is not guilty. And if you are lucky enough to still have your mum around, go give her a hug. All right, we are getting through these. Okay, moving quickly on to subject number 3. Alex. These are just the packs of the ones I've used already. I know I'm so economical. I love the planet. So someone argued that Alex could be doing it just like when he's bored. He does just kind of stand around a lot. He doesn't have a lot going on. He's got that dialogue about a weirdo wearing his shoes that we went into. So that shows a kind of like ill-informed ignorance, which could like manifest itself into some kind of prejudice against Linus. And when you meet him, he's quite like macho, traditional masculinity. So you could see this coming out in some kind of aggression. But this interpretation of Alex's character is very ungenerous. This dude has been through some stuff. All the stuff about his dad, how his dad would treat him and his mum really badly. He lives with his incredibly gentle grandparents. He's a pure boy. He's a wholesome boy. And I love him, and leave him alone. He literally wouldn't hurt a fly. He'd be the last person in the world to like punch down like this. Sure, we have that dialogue about a weirdo wearing his shoes, but as we get to know him a bit better, as he goes through his arc, he gets better, he gets less like macho, and we see that that was really like a coping mechanism. That wasn't just what his personality was. And he kind of sheds it and he becomes a little sweetheart. And I love him. Verdict, not guilty. I'm sorry for dragging you into this, Alex. He's busy. I'm going to make a tally of how many times I have to do this. Okay, so this brings us to suspect number 4. Vincent. And I could have told you, Vincent, in this world. We're going to try him as an adult here, okay? So this one had no real justifications in the comments. It seemingly just was because people like fucking hate kids. The person who wrote it was such a Vincent hater. They wrote something like, oh, he just sucks. I could just see him doing this because he's stinky. They said that apparently he's always walking around on the map unattended, so he could just slip off and cause some mischief. And I couldn't confirm or deny that because I'm not about to go follow a minor around all day. Some real Drake behaviour. And kids don't really realise like the gravity of their actions. So maybe he's kind of picked up on everyone's like hesitance towards Linus, the fact that he's like othered. And so he thinks that it's okay to like throw rocks at him. But like, he's just a kid. He's not evil. He's literally just a little boy. And they're all kind of annoying. I don't get why some people seem to really hate him. I think he's cute. If you get to 10 hearts with Vincent, he says, "Hi, Auntie Fiona. Don't tell Mum, but you're my favourite grown-up." I'm like, come on, that's darling, my baby boy. So I guess in theory, it could be him, but it is essentially just more baseless speculation. Verdict, not guilty. The only thing he's guilty of is Riz. I feel like I'm too old to be using Riz. I remember when I heard it for the first time, and me and my partner were just like, I hate that. What the hell does that mean? Now I'm like, he's risen him up. All right, now we come to our last suspect in our tier of baseless speculation. Fuck. Pam. This one was for much the same reason as Shane, or she could have done it when she was drunk. This one is a little less baseless than Shane, though, because Pam is in general meaner. I'm not going to come down too hard on her because, like I said in the Penny video, I don't know about her life. I don't know about alcoholism. It sounds really hard. But we can all admit that she's kind of fucked Penny up a little bit. Maybe more than a little bit. She yells at Penny in the 4-heart scene. She gets like really angry. She's not someone like Shane who directs it all internally. She does on occasion direct it externally towards her daughter, someone that she loves and cares about. So she could direct it externally to someone that she doesn't love and care about, aka Linus. But like, what would Pam have against Linus? Pam talks about how she wants more money and a house. Linus doesn't have a house, and to an outsider at least, he doesn't have a lot of money. So why would Pam be mad about that? What would compel Pam to like attack him in some way? It's not like Jodie where, you know, she could be hypothetically jealous of his way of life. Pam also lives a life of kind of just fucking around. Doesn't have a ton of responsibilities. Even when she's in work, she spends a bunch of time just like standing around. In nature, I just don't think that she's cruel in this particular way. It's a whole different kettle of fish to yell at your daughter for not appreciating the roof you put over her head than it is to like pelt rocks at a guy living in a tent. Pam kind of sucks, but she's not like evil. Verdict, not guilty of this particular crime. Okay, this has been tier 1 of baseless speculation. Let us get into tier 2. Okay, so we are moving up the iceberg. We are moving up the tiers of credibility. These are the ones that I don't think are pure baseless speculation. What a compliment. I don't think it's total nonsense. By the way, if you believe any of the previous ones that I called baseless speculation, I'm not saying that you're wrong. This is all, you know, my opinion, because it is baseless speculation. So you can have your opinion. That's fine. I'll have my opinion. That's what this is. And if I missed anything, let me know. Like if Jodie has some dialogue that's not on the wiki about how she secretly hates all men whose names start with the letter L, then let me know. Luigi's down so bad. Tier 2. A game theory. Suspect number 6. The witch. She's a witch. Witch. What's that from? I think that's from Horrible Histories. I'll have to look that up. I just came out of the wrinkles of my brain. So the witch is a character who, we won't go too deep into it, but basically she causes a bunch of mischief. She gives you a void egg, which actually when you think about it isn't really mischief, it's just kind of like really nice of her. Like now you can hatch void chickens. Thanks for the present, you know? And I don't think that she really does anything else. She has her whole quest line with the wizard. There we go, we're going to drag him into this for a little while. So basically the witch is the wizard's ex-wife. She stole his ink or something. You have to go to her hut to get it back. And inside her hut, you can A, delete the memories of your spouse, and B, delete your children. Children deleted. Get deleted, bitch. And dilemma deleted. Delete. That's probably enough references. Okay, so we're going to talk about another one of Linus's relationships. Linus and the wizard may or may not have a friendship. They stand next to each other at the Spirits Eve festival, which is basically Halloween. You can't reach either of them to talk to them, but in the code, they have like coded dialogue lines. And the wizard will say, "The affairs of mundane folk matter little to me, but the elementals like a chance to see you up close. It was for them that I created this silly maze." And Linus says, "Good show, old friend." So the wizard created the maze, and Linus is saying like, "Good job, mate. Top maze." So he calls him old friend, which obviously implies an old friendship, that they've been friends for a while. But I don't know what to think about these lines because they're not actually in the game. I wouldn't necessarily class it as like cut content, because if you were able to get to them, it would be content, but you're not. Like probably what happened is that he wrote those lines for the characters and then like put them in a space you couldn't get to and then realized that you can't get the dialogue, and then he was like, oh, whatever, it's no big deal. Surely if you wanted to cut it, you would just take it out. But then there's also like unused sprites and stuff that are still in the files, but they're not in the game. I don't know, it's a bit of a grey area. Anyway, all I'm saying is that this isn't canon. I say canon, it's very loose. I defy your canon. Consent ape. If we don't count this line in the code, if we just say, oh, because it's not used, it doesn't count, then the only thing that suggests a friendship between the wizard and Linus is the fact that they're standing next to each other. And standing next to each other at a festival does usually imply friendship in Stardew Valley. You know, Sam and Sebastian are always together, Harvey and Mary, etc. So they are friends, we can say, but they may or may not be old friends. So the witch is implicated here because she is exes with the wizard, and she did some like spiteful stuff to him after their breakup, he tells you. So it's just like, what if she's also mad at her ex-husband's friend? What if she's pelting Linus with rocks because she's just so mad at old Rasmodius? Old Razzle-Dazzle over here. Absolute Razmaster. Razz me up. So we have motive, and we have like a pattern of petty behaviour, because as he says, you know, she went around and cursed everything when they broke up. She stole his ink or whatever. But like, as I said, are they really friends? Also, if she's a witch, why would she be throwing rocks? That's the equivalent of Harry Potter, like, chucking a rock at Voldemort. Which, to be fair, might have worked better. But, like, come on. I don't really see it. If it was the witch, I think that instead of, you know, his tent being hit by rocks, Linus would say something to you like, oh, I had a really nice egg lined up for dinner tonight, but it's turned black. Or something like that, you know, something a little bit more magic-y. Verdict? Not guilty. She's on thin fucking ice. Suspect number 7. The dwarf. The dwarfinator. Why did I say that? Oh, my hair does not handle the humidity well. Do you have any tips? Let me know. I've used hair oil. I know, I tried. Wait, I'm going to use some more. Let me see. Oh, it's so nice and cool with the door open. Let me leave it for a while. Did that help? A little bit. A little bit. Oh, I've left the dwarf waiting. Sorry, buddy. For the life of me, I cannot remember why I wrote the dwarf down as a suspect. All I wrote down was dwarf brackets close by. That's not helpful, Fiona. I think it was because people were discussing how when Linus takes you home after you pass out, he says someone was rummaging through your pockets and, you know, some of your like money or stuff is gone. And they were saying it might be the same person. Like there's one bad person running around Pelican Town doing crimes, stealing your stuff and also throwing rocks. But then someone in reply to that said, oh, but it's totally the dwarf that steals from you though. Because the dwarf has a line about not understanding private property and coming out at night to like take stuff. To be fair, Linus also has a line about not believing in private property. I don't know if I totally believe in private property. She says while actively in the process of trying to buy a house. Curious, do you criticise society and yes, you partake in it? I try not to get our hopes up in case it doesn't go through. But it would be really nice if it did, because then I could have like a whole room just for making these videos and I could like paint the walls. I could get like a projector. I could build like a set. Because I'm such a maximalist, I love looking at things. You can probably see from this, like, this is the area behind my door. And I've got this. I've got these. Obviously, this isn't always here. I just want to cover everything and everything. I want to make the screen for you guys look as interesting as possible. All these things to look at. Hence, this stuff. Have you been reading them? They've been really funny. You have to rewind if you haven't. You have to get all my jokes. So, the dwarf is stealing your shit. Who's to say that they are also not a little shit running around throwing stuff at people's tents? And as I helpfully wrote down, they are brackets close by. Because the mine is really close to Linus's tent and the mine is where the dwarf lives. But we saw in Krobus's video that during the dwarf's heart event, they talk about how their family was wiped out by the shadow people in the elemental war. If we're willing to say about Alex that because of his messed up past, he's too like kind to do something like this, then I think we can also extend that courtesy to the little old dwarf. They say that they're most comfortable underground, so I don't really know why they would go above ground for something so petty. They only seem to do it to, you know, stock their small business. What beef would the dwarf have with Linus? Maybe they're jealous of his sick-ass outfit. In which case, Emily should be the number one suspect. Anyway, I don't know about this. I've put it in, you know, the middle tier because I think it's plausible, but personally, I don't think it was the dwarf. Verdict, not guilty of this crime, but definitely guilty of other crimes. Okay, oh my god, I'm so excited. Okay. Suspect number 8. Lewis. Fuck yeah, time for some Lewis slander. It's my favourite thing to do. Longest yeah boy ever, let's go! Yeah boy! All I have ingested today is a cup of tea and a nice coffee. I slept really bad last night because I had an idea at like 1 a.m. for a video essay based on the new Taylor Swift album and I had to write it all down, so look forward to that. Okay, so we have seen in multiple videos now that Lewis is obsessed with private property. He worries about the town being doomed. He's all about appearances. He throws the festivals. He makes it look like everything's okay, when in reality, you know, the bus is broken, The minecarts don't work. The community centre is in disrepair. You can't get to the quarry. You can't get to an entire half of the beach. But no, let's invite the governor and blow a bunch of money on a beach party. Maybe he should have been Brat Summer. And Leo says that Linus isn't comfortable joining in with the festivals, which suggests that, you know, something or someone made him feel uncomfortable. Maybe he tried to join in at one point, but Lewis discouraged him. It must drive Lewis mad that there is this, like, wild man in his town stinking up the joint, making the town look bad. So I can see him doing it. I can see him spray painting the tent too, in like a Hot Fuzz kind of way. The greater good. Do Americans know about Hot Fuzz? If not, watch the movie Hot Fuzz. Go back to London. I did low-key just spoil it for you, but you're not watching it for the plot. And also, you're not going to remember this. No, you won't. Like, Lewis wants Linus to feel persecuted so that he will leave and so that the town will look spick and span. Homelessness makes the place look bad, even though he's not homeless. And of course, Lewis would never offer to house the homeless, as we covered in the Penny video. He's a capitalist babe. He's such a girl boss. But sadly, this is baseless speculation. It's my favourite one, but it's baseless speculation. In all of Lewis's dialogue, he never mentions Linus once, and vice versa. He sucks, and we hate him. And I can see him doing it, but we have no proof, sadly. Verdict. Fuck you, Lewis. Okay, we are moving up the iceberg again. We have 3 theories left, and I think it's very likely that it is one of these. We're not going to get an answer, though. Fundamentally, I don't really think that there is an answer. I think Linus just says that there are rocks being thrown at his tent as a way of demonstrating to the player that people are mean to him, to show why he doesn't trust you. I don't think it's a question that has an answer. That being said, let's find the answer. Tier 3. Let him cook. Suspect number 9. The train. The train's the thing. So I actually screenshotted the comment on Reddit where I saw this theory. Good girl. Wow, the camera overheated. Me too, girl. You don't see me complaining about it. Yes, you do. Complained like 8 times. So in Stardew Valley, you have the train station, and on occasion, a train will pass through Stardew Valley, and you'll get a little UI pop up. A train is passing through Stardew Valley, because there is a train passing through Stardew Valley. Do you get me? From the wiki, while the train cars pass by, items such as leprechaun shoes, stone, coal, iron ore, wood, geodes, copper ore, and redacted 1.6 spoiler may fall off and be acquired. You don't need to know that, so there's no real reason to tell you. What was on that list? Stone. What is being thrown at Linus's tent? Rocks. AKA stones. So the theory goes that because the train is like geographically above Linus's tent, it's at the top of the mountains, it could simply be that rocks are falling out of the train overnight and landing on his tent. Therefore, the real culprit is no one. Jack Hughes. This is compelling. I like this. This makes sense to me. I do have some issues with it though. Number 1, the stuff that falls off the train only goes so far. Look at it. It goes like 2 feet. It's not exactly flying off to another section of the map. It could be like a suspension of disbelief thing. If a rock fell off a moving train, it would probably be going really fast, so it would get more distance to it. But if it was going that fast to cover that distance, wouldn't it rip a hole in his tent instead of just like pelting against it? Terminal velocity. I don't know physics, but you know what I mean. Scientists in the comments correct me. I do like this one because it does make sense. I would say it's quite plausible. And it also means that it wasn't anyone in town. So we don't have to be like, oh, who in this town is actually secretly a really bad person? It's Lewis. So our verdict for train. Plausible. Obviously innocent until proven guilty, but in a court of public opinion, he's looking pretty sus. Where's your apology video, train? So let's move on to our next theory. This is, as far as I can tell, the most popular theory. A lot of people were in various comment sections stating this is fact, but it is baseless speculation. Suspect number 10. He has become so numb. Our dark prince himself. Yeah, people were in the comments being like, what about the fact that Sebastian throws rocks at homeless people? Why do you still love him so much? And obviously I was like, what the fuck? I need to investigate that. He does that. But we only have circumstantial evidence. So stop saying that like it's fact, because it's not. Misinformation. All right, this one is really kind of fucking hilarious. So as we talked about with Linus earlier, every character can submit requests to the Help Wanted board in town. They're randomly generated. It seems like each character has like a few sentences that are specific to them. For example, Haley will say it's for girls only and to keep it a secret, including Super Cucumber. I found this cute fan art of her posting it. I love you, Hayley, but you're going to get a UTI. So Sebastian. It's so funny. Okay. He will post, feel like throwing item as hard as I can against the mountain face. Please deliver to Sebastian at 24 Mountain Road. He's become so numb, you guys. Number one, it's hilarious that he is the only person who puts their address. Is the implication there that there are 23 other houses on Mountain Road? Because there are not. Number two, it's just objectively hilarious that he wants to throw items as hard as he can against the cliff face. Let's look at some examples of items that Sebastian has requested to throw against the mountain. Bok choy, cauliflower, corn, eggplant, kale, melon, parsnip, radish. My Sebastian voice is getting better. Is it? Is it? So when I was digging into this, if there was any evidence of Sebastian being the culprit, I found people making references to this Help Wanted thing. And I couldn't find actual pictures of him making this request anywhere. People just said, oh, he says it. And so I thought I was just going to have to play the game over and over until I saw it myself and took a screenshot. But then I found this Tumblr called Stardew Help Wanted, which since 2016 has been posting and tagging pictures of the Help Wanted requests, which was so helpful. Oh my God, so helpful. Like, they have them all tagged perfectly. I found what I needed immediately. So I sent them a little ask on Tumblr, just being like, oh, thank you, this was really helpful for me. And they replied with this. Well, shucks. Colour me delighted as an alpaca eating a casserole. When this humble old mod set out to curate a collection of Stardew Help Wanted ads, I sure hoped that it would at the very least be amusing to connoisseurs of the absurd. The idea that this collection has been useful to boot is even better. Thank you for your very kind note, and I hope you're having fun making your video. Best, Mod. Isn't that so cute? It looks like a Help Wanted ad. I love it. I am having fun making my video. Thank you again. You are a legend. So, Sebastian is throwing things at the mountain. The ones on this blog that I found were all vegetables. And that's probably because it's funny, right? I think people submit those ones because they're funny, but they wouldn't submit one of him just requesting, like, wood. It's more funny to think of him throwing a vegetable as hard as he can against a mountain. It's actually incredibly funny to think about that. Is there fan art of that? Someone make fan art of that. And this is your guys' favourite. This guy. Vegetable thrower. So, the theory goes that he throws various things against the side of the mountain. If he were to throw a vegetable, it would probably just like squish and just drop limply. Once again, physics is not my strong point. But if he throws a rock, that shit could bounce. That shit can ricochet. Look at how my tears ricochet. And it could hit Linus's tent because it's directly below the side of the mountain. I'm putting this theory into the let it cook section because so many people seem to just fundamentally take it as true. Like, they just believe it to be canon. But like, the side of the mountain is so big. There are so many places he could throw things. Linus's tent is bright yellow and he usually has a fire burning. So Sebastian would surely know if he was throwing rocks directly above this guy's tent. And do you really think that Sebastian, of all people, would go out late at night to do some emo venting and would see a sign of another person and then walk towards it? No, he wants to go throw some vegetables in peace alone. I'm not a Sebastian stan. I don't bat for him like a lot of people do. So the fact that I'm here defending him means something. As far as I can see, the only plausible way that Sebastian would be the one hitting Linus's tent with rocks would be if he did it on purpose. And that's a whole other line of investigation, so let's explore. Why would he do it on purpose? Angst. Rebellion. To feel something. He has become so numb. I don't know that much about Sebastian yet. His deep dive video is going to be my next video. But like, I think it makes total sense for his character that he's going out at night and throwing shit against a mountain. Sure, you go for it, babes. Live your best life. What doesn't make sense for his character is him going out and deliberately harassing an old man. Sebastian kind of sucks, but I don't think he's capable of doing that. He's super introverted. He is full of angst, but he like yells at his mum and smokes. He doesn't harass the elderly. I don't know, the stakes are so low. Argue with me if you want. Do it. I feed off it. No, I'm kidding. I'd be interested to hear if anyone has any other compelling information. Anyway, for now, in my opinion, verdict, unlikely, bordering on baseless. It's got like a little bit of base. It's a tiny bit based. Now we come to our final theory. Are you going to miss this? I'm going to miss this too. Don't worry, we have another part. Suspect number 11. Monsters. Oh, I didn't give him a joke. Hang on. So I've got another screenshot of a Reddit comment for you. Good job to this person and their wrinkly brain. So as we talked about in the dwarf section, Linus lives near the mines. The mines are basically like combat areas. They're filled with monsters. You go in there, you fight, you get resources. Bingo, bango, bongo. So according to this person in the Reddit comment, Marlin tells the player he has to hunt monsters that have escaped the mines, and the mines get overrun with monsters. They also say that the monsters in the mines throw rocks. So, could it be the monsters? They escape at night, and they throw things randomly, and some of them hit Linus's tent because it's nearby. I was like all in on this theory when I read this comment. I put it right at the end because I thought that's really interesting, that's really plausible, that makes a lot of sense, but I'm going to have to do kind of a bait and switch here because I looked into it and basically none of what that comment says is true. Nowhere does Marlin tell you that he has to hunt monsters that have escaped the mines or that it gets overrun. Marlin has like 5 lines of dialogue and one tiny cutscene in which he just tells you like, oh, the mine, there must be some good ore down there. I think there is a chance of monsters roaming around on the surface because the Adventurers Guild says it's to keep the valley safe. And also there's Abigail's 14 hut scene. Spoilers! Spoilers for Abigail's 14 hut scene. Okay. Where there's just a monster roaming around. End of spoilers. What's that worth saying? And of course you can have your farm set to like allow monsters to spawn at night. Maybe during the day as well, I can't remember. But these small pieces of evidence are entirely less compelling than the idea that Marlin tells you that monsters are just leaving the mines on the regular. Also, there aren't any monsters that throw rocks. The skeletons are the only monsters in the mines that like actively throw something. And, you know, I think bones are very different from rocks. Fiona's hot science take, bones are different from rocks. And if it was a skeleton, then Linus would wake up and there would be a bunch of fucking bones everywhere, which would be very confusing. You'd think he would remember that. It's interesting to think about, though, when we include the other things he says have happened to his tent. It's been destroyed. It's been spray painted. I saw a theory that the spray paint was actually slime. Like, a slime got out of the mine, someone killed it, or maybe it just, like, spontaneously died. And, you know, they drop slime when they die, so it got slime on his tent. And if the tent was destroyed, that easily could have been a monster, because a bunch of them like throw fireballs or breathe fire. But like, come on, spray paint and slime are 2 different things. Just because Linus isn't like up to date with technology doesn't mean he doesn't know that. He may not have seen a slime ASMR video, but he still knows that. Oh, it's fucking overheating again. Yeah, so sorry to end on a bit of a downer. I really thought this one was going to pan out as like definitive. I was absolutely convinced, but now I'd say it's about as likely as the other 2. That's why you have to investigate random claims on the internet. So, to circle back to what I said before, fundamentally, logically, I do not think that there is an answer to this question. This is just for fun. This is baseless speculation. If you want my honest opinion, I think that the dialogue was just written for Linus to show that people don't treat him well because they think that he's like weird, or, you know, because people don't treat homeless people very well. To show that like persecution of him, to show why he doesn't trust you at first, to flesh him out, to be like the beginning of this arc that we've seen him go through. I don't think it's part of some like intricate lore. I don't think it was written with that much intention. I think it's just dialogue. We all be saying shit, you know? Anyway, yeah, tell me what you think. Did I miss any theories? Which one do you believe? Do you have any more ideas? Because it's fun to talk about, regardless. I love some baseless speculation. Oh, I forgot to say about Sebastian. So Sebastian, people think that he graffitied on the side of the train. The side of the train. Because it says like S-H-A. And people are convinced that that means Sebastian loves Abby. Because he talks about how he has a crush on her. So if he graffitied the side of the train, you think he has spray paint. He could have spray painted Linus' tent. But as I said, like, why would he do that? Just because you have spray paint doesn't mean that you do all of the spray painting. Like, there's other graffiti on the side of the tent. There's like a smiley face or something. Does this look like a smiley face kind of guy? No. Do you want to know a fun fact? This shirt is reversible. See? Idiot. Part 2.2. Who is he? Who am I? 24601. Okay, this section. You will be valid if you criticize me for it not being like overly deep of a dive, overly detailed, because I don't know what it is, but I don't personally find it the most fun to like build these kind of outlandish theories about lore based off very little evidence. If you're into that, if that's your jam, you know, you do you, love that for you. But I just find like people building these huge theories about Linus's backstory and stuff based off like one line of his. You're just writing fan fiction, babes. That's not lore, that's fan fiction. You're on the wrong website. We're going to start with the ones that I find the most boring, and then we'll get to the more interesting ones, because that's how I will keep myself engaged. Again, if this is your personal theory, I'm not trying to shit on your parade. We all have our opinions. And they all stink. Theory number 1. The wizard. Sorry about the background noise. There is no way I'm shutting these windows. I think I would literally die. So as we talked about when we were discussing the witch, Linus is friends with the wizard. They stand next to each other at Spirit's Eve. There are those unused lines in the files where Linus calls him an old friend. That's it. That's all of our evidence for anything to do with the wizard. Do you see what I mean with it essentially just coming from nothing? Anyway, so there are all these theories about them, like that Linus is also a wizard basically, and they used to adventure together. Maybe Linus gave it up so that he could like live as a human and grow old, and that's why Linus is, you know, visibly old and the wizard isn't. Or maybe Linus is still a wizard, he still has magic, but he's like a different kind of magic user. So he could be like a druid. So if I consult my Dungeons and Dragons player handbook, did you think I wouldn't have one of them? Every nerd has one. Whether calling on the elemental forces of nature or emulating the creatures of the animal world, druids are an embodiment of nature's resilience, cunning, and fury. They claim no mastery over nature. Instead, they see themselves as extensions of nature's indomitable will. And that high-key sounds like Linus, right? Embodiment of nature's resilience, see themselves as an extension of nature. And there are theories about Linus, the wizard, also your grandpa, maybe your grandma, also maybe Marlon and Gil, being like marauders vibes, founding the town, like banishing all the monsters to the mines. Maybe they locked Krobus in the sewer. Like they're responsible for all of the kind of magic in the town. There's a plot line to do with this in like Stardew Valley Expanded as well, I'm pretty sure. And that's cool. I like your imagination, but I'm not going to go into that because I just feel like it's just imagination. It's not based on anything. It's just someone's fan fiction. And like, love that for you. Don't stop doing what you're doing. But I'm not going to talk about it here like it's a legitimate theory. It's kind of creative writing, really. So, not much else to say. Next up, we're going to talk about Yoba. I just realised I didn't make a prop for Yoba. Give me a minute, I'll cobble something together. I'll be so mad if you can't read that. Okay, now we're going to talk about Yoba. This one gets more of my interest because I think it's funny. So this is the theory that Linus is Yoba. Like Yoba in Stardew Valley is God. So Linus is God. Linus is mother. So let's look at our evidence. If you look at the inside of his tent, it vaguely, if you squint, looks like the symbol of Yoba, kind of a little bit. He encourages kindness. He encourages respect for other people's way of life and for nature, which is a pretty God tier opinion. He saves you from the mines and he saves you when you pass out, which implies, you know, a certain amount of omniscience. Like he's always watching out for you. Plus the Book of Yoba references golden light, a golden void. Linus has, you know, yellowy gold eyes, this golden outfit, a yellow tent. The Book of Yoba also has a lot of plant-based imagery, and we know our boy loves plants. Plus, he just, like, vaguely kind of looks like the stereotypical depiction of God, like how they draw God in The Simpsons. Old white guy, white hair, beard, yellow shirt, hat. I like this not because I think it's true, but because it makes me feel kind of warm and fuzzy on the inside. Like, if Linus was God, I would become religious so fast. I'd worship him. Not in a sex way, but come on. He's not Yoba. He doesn't trust you at first. He kind of pushes you away. It's not very godly. Although you could say it's like he was testing you. God seemed to do that a lot. Hey, kill your kid for me. Oh my god, JK. Lol, you were totally about to do that, weren't you? You were actually going to do it. That's so cringe. It's just a prank, bro. But if it was a test that would kind of mess with his entire arc that I spent the first part of this video meticulously building and exploring in detail, so I'm going to say that that's not the case. Linus also references dying. Like he says, but I'm getting old, and I'd like to teach someone all that I've learned before moving on. And you could see moving on as like, where's he going? You know, he's nomadic, he's going somewhere else. Is he just moving away from Stardew Valley? But he says he's getting old, so I think it's a pretty explicit reference to death. Also, like I mentioned before, he posts on the Help Wanted board. He buys diamonds and other random shit like that. Why would God do that? I mean, he works in mysterious ways, but like... This one goes into the class of it's entertaining, but it is fundamentally just entertainment. Like Cars being about eugenics, or Link being dead in Majora's Mask. It's very game theory, you know? Linus is Yoba the whole time. It's very clickbait. Okay, our final point of discussion for this video is the theory that I saw the most. That is the most popular, and is the most plausible, and actually has like some kind of evidence. So let's jump right in. In the game files, you can find some unused art. And in there, you will find this dashing young man. Hello, sir. You look smart. Oh my god, I should have made him bigger. I'm sorry, he's so small. There we go, he's got a little buddy. Who is this young man? Well, this is another unused sprite. So this, as well as these two, are unused sprites of Linus. Let's put him with his friends. There we go, they're a little club. We can see that this is obviously the same outfit that he ends up in. So the implication here is a progression from young, smart looking, no beard, to young, leaf outfit, stubble, to old, leaf outfit, beard. The cycle of life. There's no young portrait of him, you know, like a full picture. So either whatever this was meant to be a part of didn't include him speaking in that kind of way, or maybe the idea was just scrapped before it got to that point. Personally, based on these, I would assume that it was a scrapped heart event, like it was meant to be a flashback to his younger days. The way that it shows him younger and in like normal clothes, and then younger in this outfit, implies that it was going to be like his origin story, showing like his progression, how he went from this to this. If we return to an earlier line of his dialogue, I have my own reasons for living alone like this. Some things are best left unsaid. I should do some foraging. This is like the only reference we get to his past life, and he just says some things are best left unsaid. We can see with this normal outfit that there's him standing, and then there's him looking down. So we can kind of assume that in this theoretical heart event, he was disappointed in something bad happened. I've seen speculation that this was a wedding suit, and he was jilted at the altar or something. Guys will literally go into the woods and make an outfit out of leaves instead of going to therapy when a girl leaves them. So we've got some more things about Linus to go through. So if we build a little bit more of a picture, we've established that Linus is not short on cash. He buys diamonds. He's well-travelled. He tells you he's been to like the tundra. 1.6 spoilers. Get out of here. We had that line earlier in a spoiler section about how Linus thinks that money is evil. No, thank you. I have no desire for money. In fact, I think it's cursed. Which, like, okay, he does literally have money because he buys things from you, so can't be that cursed. But I guess this shows he has no issue spending it. He just doesn't desire more of it. Maybe he's buying diamonds from you to, like, get rid of the money because he thinks it's cursed. Like, he says that it's cursed. This kind of ties into his spiritualism if he's saying he thinks that there are supernatural forces at play here. I don't think he's speaking metaphorically here when he says it's cursed. He says in fact, so I think that implies that he believes in, like, legit curses. And apart from talking about the spirits of like fish and nature and stuff, he doesn't seem to have any other strong beliefs like this. So it leads me to wonder why he thinks this way. Did something happen to him to do with money? Did it curse him in some way? End of spoilers. Finally, Linus has this line. It's so easy to get caught up in the noise of modern life. Your best years will pass you by in a formless blur. That's why you've got to learn to slow down. So this is kind of implying that his best years have passed him by in a formless blur. His best years when he was around this age. So if we put all of these pieces together, it's a pretty compelling idea that Linus used to be some kind of businessman, some like corporate rat race kind of guy, wearing a suit, having cash, caught up in the noise of modern life. I think this makes a lot of sense. Personally, I would consider it like unofficial canon, which isn't really canon, but whatever. It's canon on this channel. There's the Concerned Ape canon, and then there's the Fiona Sexter canon. Never the twain shall meet. I say unofficial because the sprites, fundamentally, are not in the game, so they aren't canon. This is all conjecture, but if we compare this theory to he stands next to the wizard once a year, what if he's a wizard? I think it's a lot more compelling. Now we're going to go a little bit further out into some conjecture. What if Linus is the CEO of Joja? What if his name is Linus Joja? Dun, dun, dun. So the theory goes that he was happy with his life, corporate, capitalist, expanding his business, chopping down rainforests, greed, profit, shareholders, gaslight, gatekeep, girl boss, the whole 9 yards. And then for one day, for some reason, he looked around, or he looked down, and suddenly he was like, oh fuck, shit, this was a bad idea, fuck. But by then, Joja was like too big and he couldn't stop it. He had shareholders or like members of the board or however capitalism works, and he couldn't just like cancel everything. So he quit. He took enough money to be able to live off, and he fucked off into the wilderness to try and like repent or make peace or something. And this would tie into what we said before about how he wants to understand and control his thoughts. He needed to like reflect on his actions, like come to terms with them. If we think about this thematically, the player at the beginning of the game works at Joja, and you get a note from your grandpa that says, there will come a day when you feel crushed by the burden of modern life, and your bright spirit will fade before a growing emptiness. And he says that's when you should open this letter. And when you do open it, the letter says, if you're reading this, you must be in dire need of a change. The same thing happened to me long ago. I'd lost sight of what mattered most in life. real connections with other people and nature. So I dropped everything and moved to the place I truly belong. I've enclosed the deed to that place. It's located in Stardew Valley on the southern coast. It's the perfect place to start your new life. So in literal terms, the game acknowledges that Stardew Valley is a good place to start a new life away from Joja. In more thematic terms, we can see a potential parallel here. You, the player, have lost sight of what matters most, connections with other people and nature. And we said that Linus had to regain his connection with nature by going into the wild, and he regains his connection with people through his relationship with you. Stardew Valley as a whole is, by way of its storytelling, very anti-corporation. Joja is always seen as a force for bad. Morris sucks. Shane and Sam hate working at Joja Mart. You hate working at corporate. Joja Mart is putting Pierre's out of business, which is apparently a bad thing. They want to get rid of the community centre. The game is trying to emphasise these community values, the values of nature, as opposed to just seeking endless profit. It's kind of tied into the game design as well. I read somewhere that ConcernedApe didn't make all of the recipes automatically worth more than all of the ingredients combined because he didn't want people to just farm recipes for profit. He didn't want you to have to worry about squeezing maximum efficiency from the game. So we can see that vaguely anti-capitalist sentiment there as well. So this hypothetical heart event where a young Linus Joja realizes the error of his ways and repents to live a life in nature totally tracks. It doesn't have to be Joja specifically. It could just be that he worked at a bank or something. But like I said, Joja just kind of stands for everything that is bad in this game. So it would make sense. He came to Stardew Valley in much the same way you did, crushed by the burden of modern life, in dire need of a change. Although Linus hasn't lived in Stardew Valley for 50 years. He does move around. He says he's just stopping in Stardew Valley. He stopped in Stardew Valley because of the library. I couldn't figure out where to mention this, but I think it would be cool if Linus would leave sometimes. You know how in your first year, Kent isn't there and then he gets back? I think it would be cool if after year 2, Linus left for a year or something, and then he could come back, and then he could go, and then he could come back. I just think it would add a cool dynamic. It would really make him feel like a traveller. And then that would be a good way to add in more tradable items as well. He could come back and he could be like, do you want this weird coconut or something? I don't know. Yeah, it would make him feel, like he was traveling, like he was a nomad. It would make the game feel less static. It is kind of trippy to have him always talking about moving around, but he just stays in this one place for all of eternity. Something else I noticed in printing out these sprites. So this is to scale, not with reality obviously, but with each other. And if we look at the eye lines, oh, you really can't see that very well. I'll take a picture, I'll put it on the screen. You can see with the eye lines that old Linus is taller than young Linus. And people shrink as they get older because of gravity. So if he's grown since this point, it kind of implies that here he's not finished growing. He's like a teenager or something. I don't think this holds ground though. I don't think he would have started, living like this as a teenager. And they're unused sprites at the end of the day. They might not have been finished. It's just something I noticed. Something to think about. Anyway, do I think that this is true? Do I think that he's Linus Joja? Not really. Is it an interesting headcanon? Yes. Do I low-key now kind of adopt it internally into how I look at Linus? Yeah, kinda. In the Fiona Sangster canon universe, he is Linus Joja. It doesn't have to be the specific, he is Linus Joja confirmed kind of thing. Game theory. But we can see that all of those themes are there. It doesn't really add much that we don't already know at the end of the day. He hates modern life. He thinks nature's more important. And he loves diamonds. So that was our last Linus theory. Let me know if I missed anything. I almost definitely did because people just be making shit up. I said in the Penny video how ConcernedApe mentioned that he leaves things deliberately vague. And there's such an art to that, being vague to the point where nothing is confirmed, but specific enough to where people can come up with theories. Like that Linus dialogue line. I have my own reasons for living alone like this. Some things are best left unsaid. I should do some foraging. This tells us essentially nothing. It's kind of a cop-out, but it's just a tiny, tiny sliver of the puzzle that allows us to build stuff around it. And that's so fun. I think it's part of why I like this game so much. It's accessible. I'm not a deep and complex lore kind of person. When I watch Game of Thrones or Lord of the Rings with my partner, I'm always like, who's that? Who's he? Who are they? Where are they? I just can't get information to stick in my head like some people can. I really like Lord of the Rings. I did really like Game of Thrones. But you just don't need to know a lot of it. And I think that pieces of media like Stardew Valley, where it's quite economic in the world building and the storytelling, appeal to me. Because you watch these deep dives and it's 90% of it is either me talking about my own life or telling you my opinion or tying disparate things together or trying to figure out the themes and intentions. So little time is just me telling you information from the game because there's not that much. So there's all this room for me to like wiggle my way in there and like fill in the gaps, you know? It's the same with the characters. Like with the Sam video, I watched it back recently and so much of that video is just me being like, I'm depressed. I need positivity in my life. Tell me it's going to be okay. That train of thought is why I'm planning on spending a long time working on the Shane and Sebastian videos. Because like, why? Especially Sebastian, because as I've said multiple times, I don't really get it totally. He makes me feel nothing. I have become so numb. But yeah, with Shane, I've spent a long time now making these videos and thinking the whole time about why he appeals to me and the huge gap between the character as he exists in the vanilla base game and how he exists inside my head. But it's the kind of careful tending of that gap, like I said, the ability to be deliberately vague, that allows players to use their imagination and project onto things. And in that way, you know, you feel engaged in the world. Similar to how, you know, choice-based games, the immersion comes from affecting the world. With Stardew, you don't really affect anything. But if it can very easily lift off of the page, as it were, and build itself in your mind, then that's engagement in itself. Anyway, that was my tiny random speech about why this game is so good. Before we conclude, I just want to mention one more thing. So making these videos takes me a long time. I said this Linus video was going to be a short one. I think it's going to be as long as the Alex, if not longer, because that was like 15,000 words. I love doing it. I love doing it. And I'm really lucky to have started getting sponsorships and stuff and to have so much amazing support from you guys. It's literally been insane. My ego's never been higher. Not to say it's high, but I'd say it's like pretty close to normal, which is a big deal for me. But you know, there's practical limitations to if a video is longer, it's going to take longer because, you know, it just does. That's how it works. Like watching it back or the editing. And also the Sebastian and Shane videos, I would say, are the most anticipated videos from me as well. I can't wait to start working on them. And I have a lot of like interesting ideas, interesting plans of things to incorporate into them, things to do differently. For example, we have a new set today. And you know, I want to start doing stuff like that more. Different rooms, different outfits, different ways of displaying information. And I also want to get into more, you know, like I said, that psychological side. Maybe look at some Sebastian fanfiction. Basically, you know, put my whole Fiona into it. But sadly, capitalism turns on. I'm already starting to feel that pressure of like, let me get this video done this month so that my like YouTube says, oh, you've made enough money to pay your rent, you know? So to that end, with that preamble, I would like to let you know that I will be launching a Patreon. Yeah, I'm so original. It's the first one actually, this new website, I don't know if you've heard of it. It will be ready to visit as of this video. I've got it all set up. The tiers are pretty much all the same except for like, you know, the $5 tier, you get your name and the credits, and $10, I'll like say it out loud. So what I'm thinking is when I'm working on those longer videos, I can do like updates. Oh, I like thought of this thing about Sebastian, what do you guys think? And also, I don't know if anyone's seen the YouTube channel called Little Joel. It's like the shitposting second channel of Big Joel, where he'll just go on there and he'll post like a 2-minute video and it's like, here's a bunch of impressions that I can do. And I was thinking I would kind of treat it like that. Like if I just have like a funny thought in my head, I'll go on and I'll be like, just shitpost, you know? Obviously, as well as quality content. Like I get a lot of questions about my background in game design. I got a question about my hair care routine. So I could do a little Q&A on there. I was thinking I could film like get ready with me as I get ready to film the videos. Because I always try and do my makeup like similar to the characters in some way. In the first half of the video, it was like kind of brown, peachy vibes. And then yeah, behind the scenes of my Cricut not fucking working. Just like a bunch of stuff really. I will also be posting ad and sponsor free versions of all my videos. Also, I might set up some kind of Discord role. I don't know how to do that yet. I'll see. So yeah, I'll put the link in the description if you would like to check that out. If you do, thank you so much. I literally can't express to you like how grateful I am. How much I didn't expect this. If you go back and watch the Elliot video, there's a part in that video where I just go, sometimes you're just making stuff for the enjoyment and you're not going to make any money out of it. Like this video. And it's like, this is my job now. Yeah, it's really amazing. So thank you everyone so much. People are so nice to me. Oh my God. You guys are so nice to me. So yeah, check that out if you're interested. Huge, huge thank you to anyone who does. Yeah, that's all I have to say about that. Okay, end of me asking you for money. Okay, I've got my Linus hoodie back on. I'm going to do this as quick as I can because I'm so boiling. Okay, we have reached the end of the deepest dive into Linus from Stardew Valley. Thank you so much for watching. Please, if it's not too much, like the video and subscribe to my channel. I would appreciate it. Ooh. Like I said, I'm going on holiday, so I'm not quite sure when the Sebastian video will be ready. I will work on it while I'm away. But don't worry, I'll take some time for myself. I'm not going to burn out. Leave me a cute comment. Tell me what I can do about my frizzy hair. Check out my Patreon. Love you lots. I hope you're having a good day, and I will see you in the next video. Mwah.